Here we go. Deeper dive presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. I'm Dave Lockman, with me, Adam Scher, and of course, our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, home of the $200,000 NFL baller kicking off this Sunday, and the $25K NBA baller tonight, $5,000 to first. About 200 spots remaining there, $10 to enter. Max entry of 85. You can now do CSV uploads and CSV edits. All the bells and whistles over at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, of course. And you can get your YSRPs, your Yahoo Sports Rewards points, up to $30 by signing up and depositing through us. Our social media guy, Brett's going to drop the link into the YouTube chat right now. It'll take you to a free article at awesemo.com because we can't put the Yahoo link in the YouTube chat. It'll take you there. You'll see the Yahoo link right at the top of the free article. Actually, it'll be on the Thursday night article, so check it out. It's written by EMAC, and it's a good one. Click that, sign up using the sign-up code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, and get your $30 in YSRPs, as good as cash to be used to play, win, and if you choose, deposit or withdraw money on the site. It's Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Adam, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? Pretty fun 5-game slate to talk about. Lots of moving parts, I think.
I'll tell you what, it's funny. I wrote the deep dive today, and it felt, as I was writing this, like way bigger than a 5-game slate.
Yeah, with the 8:00 start, I spent a lot of time working in like lineup rewind on Fantasy Cruncher today, and it was like, oh, it's a 5-game slate. I have an extra hour or whatever, and then ended up still like barely finishing the stuff I needed to do before the show because it actually took a while for 5 games.
Yeah. At one point, I was like, this game has the third highest total on the slate because it was like 223, right? Normally that's, and I was like, oh, wait a second. That's the third lowest total on the slate as well. So I had to catch myself.
This game is the median.
What's that?
This game is the median.
Yeah, exactly. Glad to have everyone with us as always, though. If you enjoy the content, you enjoy the show, hit that thumbs up button while you're here. It's greatly appreciated and helps us keep putting out free content on YouTube. What do you say we kick it off with the New York Knicks and the Dallas Mavericks?
Sounds great.
Let's do it. So you've got the Dallas Mavericks. We'll start for the road team because there's a lot to get to here. This game with a 216 total, but the Mavs have a 111 total, 103.8 for the Knicks. Knicks are 7.5-point dogs. Luka Doncic has been flat out spectacular. There's no two ways around it. I mean, when you have a guy that is tied for most triple doubles with LeBron James, leads his team in usage, points, rebounds, and assists, and also ranks third in the league in drives, second in potential assist, and first in touches, it almost feels like $10,000 on DraftKings is a discount.
Yeah, still it's a pretty nice price tag. The Knicks haven't been, the worst defensive team this year, but he just does everything on the floor. Like you said, 48% assist percentage, 14% rebounding percentage is higher than every player on the team except for Boban. Leads the team with a 32% usage rate. Plays, big minutes in competitive games. There's nothing really not to like about Luka. So I expect to have a lot of him.
I would think so too. Knicks defense, yeah, not terrible. But it's also a Knicks team that Luka dropped 38, 14, and 10 on earlier this season.
Yeah, we saw him and Porzingis both have monster games in that one.
Yeah, just in terms of Luka, where we're prioritizing here, you've got Yanis Antetokounmpo. Of course, we'll get to him. Just really, really solid option at any price. You have Luka Doncic, Trae Young, no Kawhi Leonard. Kyrie Irving is probable, unfortunately. And then you have Nikola Jokic. Those are your guys that are priced at 85 and up using DraftKings pricing. Where do you think Doncic falls into the priorities for you?
So in the crunch I did before the show, and this isn't really factoring in ownership, but amongst those guys, I got Doncic fourth behind Kyrie, Young, Yanis.
Okay. So you like him, but not that much if it's a 5-game slate and you got him at number 4.
Well, I mean, the percentage is also like 28 on Luka, 29 on Giannis, 33 on Trae.
Gotcha.
They're the same.
Okay. So nobody really has a wide lead in this one.
Right.
Kristaps Porzingis facing his former team in New York. So back at Madison Square Garden. Here's why I don't really care about the narrative, the revenge narrative. Because on one hand, you could say, "Oh, revenge narrative. He's going to absolutely crush. He's gonna kill this team. Huge revenge spot." And then on the other hand, you could say, "Well, Madison Square Garden. You know what? The moment might be too big for him, Adam. I don't know if he can hold up. I don't know what type of character this guy has." Uh, Point being, who the hell knows how he's going to react or respond to a spot like this? But he's $6,900 on DraftKings, and that's really all I care about.
Yeah, I couldn't care less about the fact he's playing in Madison Square Garden. I care more about the fact that he's going up against the front court where last game he was defended by Marcus Morris. They have Julius Randle. They have, Bobby Portis. He shot 11 for 22 in that game. 28 points, 9 rebounds, added 5 blocks for good measure, fouled out after 36 minutes. I care more about, the fact that he's really, really cheap and should play big minutes, second on the team in usage, than I do about where he's playing.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I just don't really care much about the narrative. What's funny about Porzingis is you'd think for someone of his size, he'd rebound better, but he's really not a great rebounder. What's his rebound rate? Like 14% or something, I think.
It's lower this season. It's like 9 or 11,
Is it? Wait, his total rebound rate's at 11%.
somewhere around there.
Wow. Let me see. 13.
Is it?
Last year, or 2016, 17, 2017, 18, it was 11.8 and 11.3.
NBA.com has 11.3 this year.
Well, that's really strange. Basketball Reference has 13. Nevertheless, besides the point, rebounding he's not great at it. However, he has a 6.6% block rate. He is one of the best shot blockers in the league. He's had 5 and 6 block shot games this season. He ranks third in the league in block shots behind Anthony Davis and Jonathan Isaac. So Porzingis can make up for the pedestrian rebounding with, of course, scoring and his rebounding ability or shot blocking ability.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think that the price tag it's not like you're paying, $9K and you're basically paying for him to have a good rebounding game or you need all those blocks. He can get there just on scoring.
Do you have any thoughts on the rest of this team outside of Porzingis and Doncic?
I do not.
Okay, good. Neither do I. New York Knicks. Julius Randle continues to underwhelm. Been playing a lot of him lately. I know you have too. I still think that we're going to begin to see better numbers, but it hasn't been the case yet. RJ Barrett is priced respectably, but he's been all over the map. And then Mitchell Robinson, of course, one of he's going to finish the season as the best per minute guy on this team, but his minutes are all over the place. What are you doing with the Knicks today?
Not a whole lot. Nothing outside of Julius Randle that I think is really a priority. I do like Randle. Playing big minutes, leads the team in usage, leads the team in assist percentage. He is second to Bobby Portis in rebounding percentage. Mitchell Robinson's still questionable, so if Robinson's out, you should get more rebound chances for Randle. But I think that he's someone I'm going to keep going to just because the price tag's lower than it should be. But beyond that, it's just secondary guys. RJ Barrett, quietly his minutes have come down. He's still playing plenty, but you're not getting those 39, 40-minute games anymore that were really nice at the beginning of the season. Dennis Smith Jr., I know Alex has talked a lot about today. I kind of agree with his take. Like, I think Dennis Smith Jr. is a guy that you can, if you're playing 150 lineups, you can mix in and just hope that something goes weird with Fizdale's rotation. He's, basically minimum salary, and we know there's enough volatility in the rotation that you could get extra minutes from Dennis Smith Jr. So he's someone that I'll have a little bit of. Like, he'll probably be my third highest owned Nick behind Randle and Barrett.
Asking what you're projecting him for in terms of minutes is kind of a useless question, because the hope is that Fizdale just decides to run him for heavy minutes, but there's really no way to like accurately project what you're getting here, because the point guard rotation is always in flux.
Right. Like, I gave him 18 minutes. I basically was just trying to get it to a point where I'll get him in more than 0 lineups, and I won't get him in like 20% of my lineups.
If you're building lineups while you listen to today's deeper dive, I'll give you this news before we get there. Brandon Ingram and Jahlil Okafor have been ruled out. So big news, particularly, well, really only with Brandon Ingram. Pretty significant there. Any other thoughts on the Knicks?
No.
Milwaukee, Chicago. Um, Giannis Antetokounmpo is a freak. Simple as that. You got a 229.5 total in this game. Bucks have a slate high 120.8 total. Pretty damn solid there. And then, of course, 108.8 for the Bulls. Bulls are 12-point dogs in Milwaukee. Giannis is the only player in the league with a usage rate above 30%, assist rate above 20%, and the rebound rate above 20%. He's insane with his ability to put up monster numbers. The counting stats are off the charts. It's actually crazy that his only triple double was the first game this season. And sorry, I meant 30% plus usage and assists and a 20% plus rebounding rate. He's also blocking shots at 4.5%. I mean, Chris Middleton off the floor. If you were to take Middleton off the floor along with Brogdon from last year, I think it's like 1.86 fantasy points per minute or something insane, Adam.
Yeah, and on top of that, a favorable matchup against Chicago. I think Giannis is more interesting in terms of just strategy for the slate than in terms of actually talking about Giannis, because obviously he's the highest projected guy on the slate. I think I have him 10 points ahead of the next closest guy, but he's also really expensive. You have him at 11.7, you have Luka at 10K, and right now we have him as projected on DraftKings as the second highest owned guy. When you have slates like this where there's one guy that is kind of by himself at the top and you don't have great value, so it kind of forces you on to the same mediocre value plays that everyone else is on if they want to fit Giannis, I tend to come in underweight, especially when you have a high upside mid range like we do with Luka and Young and Irving, because it's just one guy. It's not like you have to have bad games from all of Giannis and Harden and LeBron or something like that. You just need this game. You just need like a 60-point game from Giannis where he doesn't kill you for not having him. For it to be better to have some higher upside, cheaper guys. So if his ownership stays as high as it is, especially after the Brandon Ingram news, I expect that I'll probably go to more of those like 9 to 10K range guys. But if his salary comes down, then I become really interested because obviously I still think he's the highest scorer on the slate.
If ownership comes down, you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify, in the event that his ownership stays where it is as we get closer to lock, do you see yourself having like very little of him or just not going overboard?
I don't think I'd be overboard. Like I would expect that if he's like 40% owned, that I come in somewhere either around the field or a little bit less. Like,
okay. Yeah. And I think that's an important point to make though, right? Because
yeah,
when you're saying you might have less, you could still see yourself having him as like one of your highest owned guys, just not going way above the field.
right. Like I don't, if he's like 40% owned, I don't see the need to have like none of a guy that I have projected for 67 fantasy points.
For sure.
It's just that I don't see the need at that ownership and with this slate being how it is to have like 80% either.
Okay. Um, Keeping it moving here, Eric Bledsoe has only played 100, I think it's 131 minutes without Middleton and Brogdon and Giannis since the start of last season. I bring that up because I want to pose this question to you. We've noticed, and this is how it should be, that Mike Budenholzer, when Middleton was healthy, always made a clear effort to make sure at least one of those guys, Middleton, Bledsoe, Giannis, was on the court at all times. There might be a minute here or there where they weren't, but you almost always have one of those guys on the floor. Now there's no Brogdon this year, and now Middleton's out. Bledsoe's numbers with Giannis, Brogdon, and Middleton off the court are insane. Do you think it's possible that Budenholzer staggers him enough to where he plays potentially 7-8 minutes without Giannis? Because that could make a really big difference today.
I think it's possible. Looking at the rotation from the game against Oklahoma City where Middleton left early, they didn't stagger. But again, that was a second half injury. And a lot of times coaches will kind of just keep going with what they already had going. So I think it's possible. But even if that isn't the case, I think Bledsoe gets a nice bump because if you look at his numbers alongside Giannis without Middleton or Brogdon, he averaged last season under those conditions, he averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute compared to I think it was 0.98 points per minute when Middleton was also on the floor. This season, he's already averaging about 1.22 DraftKings points per minute. But he saw his usage rate last year jump from 22.1% to about 26.6% without Middleton. This year, he's already at 24.5%. I just think that either way, he's going to see more usage. And he also, I think, sees a path to a couple more minutes because along with fouls and blowouts this year, we've seen at times that, George Hill is just stealing minutes from him because George Hill is a decent player and he's going to get his, 18 to 20 minutes. But there's no reason that they can't play Hill alongside Bledsoe for a chunk of minutes and get Hill minutes that way now without Middleton. So I think it makes it even easier for Bledsoe to get into that, 30 plus minute range.
So do you like him?
Yeah, I love him. He's one of my favorite tournament plays.
Yeah, I love him as well.
I think he's also really appealing in tournaments if Yanis is really popular and Bledsoe isn't, because it has nothing to do with predicting that this game blows out, but it's certainly possible that it does. And let's say Bledsoe goes out there and just has a monster game. There's a really good chance the Bulls don't keep up and Giannis has a subpar game. So the way I'm approaching it is because Giannis is so expensive in tournaments, I'll probably set a rule so that with Giannis, I have at least one of the guys from Chicago running it back. But with Bledsoe, I won't. So I'll get some lineups where if Bledsoe just goes nuts, I beat all the Giannis teams.
Yeah, ownership was updated 2 hours ago. It's going to be updated again shortly during this show. But right now, I mean, you have him at $7,300 on DraftKings and 5.9% ownership. On FanDuel at 7,400, he's 16% because of that price point. And then over at Yahoo, $22, he's 31%. So I think on Yahoo, he's a top play, no question. FanDuel, he's a really good play too. But because he's not dirt cheap on DraftKings, does that make you potentially like him more? Because obviously the ownership is way, way suppressed there than it is on FanDuel and Yahoo.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say more, but I'll be more over the field on him probably than I would on the sites where he's
Right.
cheaper because he's just gonna be higher owned there.
Yeah, I don't mean like him more than you do on FanDuel or Yahoo, but like him more than you would have if he was, 6,500 and had the same ownership as those other sites.
Right. Like it's appealing that he's gonna have lower ownership for sure.
All right. The rest of Milwaukee, I've seen some, talk of Dante DiVincenzo and all that good stuff, but I don't know what to make there because when Middleton did go out, it was Sterling Brown that came in for him.
DiVincenzo's starting.
Is he starting?
Yeah.
Confirmed?
Yeah, just like a minute ago.
Oh, okay. Well, there you have it. I still don't know how much run he's going to get, but that definitely changes my tone a little bit. Because if he wasn't starting, I wasn't confident to give him more than 18, 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think that it's still risky because they just have so many wings. Kyle Korver wasn't on the injury report. DiVincenzo, Connaughton, Brown, Matthews. Like I said before, you could have Hill play a couple more minutes alongside Bledsoe. There's a lot of different ways this rotation can go. But I will give the edge to the guy starting, especially because if it had been Sterling Brown, I wouldn't have been that interested because he was 4,400 on DraftKings. But DiVincenzo is 3,100, so you don't. It's a lot easier to pay off that price tag. Last year, he only played 92 minutes with Giannis on the floor last year. He, had an 11% usage rate. So there's
Is that good?
not great. Definitely a chance that he's just, not really doing anything while he's out there.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're talking about someone that is entirely scoring dependent, he is. But you know what? Most of these dirt cheap wing players are almost always relying on scoring. But I think there's if you wanted to play him and hope he gets the minutes, I get it. I mean, if you remember last year, we saw a lot of those games where Pat Connaughton played like 28 minutes, and sometimes he'd have decent games, but usually he'd give you like 17 fantasy points.
Right.
So, yeah. At least there, then we know he's starting. Anything else for the Bucks?
Brooke Lopez is only 5,200 on DraftKings. Should get somewhere around 30 minutes here. I think that's a really cheap price tag, especially on a slate that doesn't have a ton of great center options.
How about the Bulls here? Obviously not a particularly appealing matchup. You got Colby White. I kid. You've got Zach LaVine, questionable here, but I believe he's confirmed in. Yeah,
he's
he's
available.
in. What?
He's listed as available.
Yeah, he's available. Otto Porter's out, and you've got guys like Carter Jr., Markkinen. I'm a Carter Jr. fan, Wendell Carter Jr. I think from a per minute standpoint and efficiency standpoint, you're going to continue to get good numbers from him. I worry about foul trouble though, and on this slate, I don't see myself getting there for a number of reasons that we'll talk about in the very next game. Do you have anything you really like here from Chicago?
Marketing.
You do really like Markkinen. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm not nervous about it because obviously he's not having a good season so far, but he was still on track to play 34 minutes last game if Kobe White hadn't shot the lights out in the fourth quarter and kept that second unit on the floor. Like you can go back and map out the rotation and see that he lost like 4 to 6 minutes because of that happening. So I still liked the rotation. They didn't play Luke Cornett again. Markkinen was playing backup center. The price tag just keeps coming down, and it's his ownership probably won't skyrocket until he has a big game. So I'm going to keep getting there. Obviously a lot of things can go wrong, but you're basically just paying a floor price tag for him. So he's my favorite guy on Chicago, then Carter, and then Levine.
Man, chat's popping off right now with some serious comments. Dante is the play. Reddish is only 3,500. He sucks at those minutes. He sucks at all the. I don't understand. No brainer in a few lineups. Here's what I chose. I'm assuming he means JJ Redick in one of mine. Too Nice says Redick is trash. It's getting heated, man.
I think my favorite is no brainer in a few lineups.
I was just gonna say that. If he's, I was literally typing. If he's a no brainer, wouldn't he just be in all of your lineups, or at least most of them? Oh, okay.
Someone get this guy a tout job. He's nailed it.
All right. So yeah, we got chat happening right now. And look, yeah, Cam Reddish, just because DiVincenzo's starting doesn't mean he's going to get a lot of minutes. Like I said, you want to run him out there in some, I get it. Maybe he plays 28 minutes and that'd be awesome. At that price at almost minimum salary though, yeah, I'll have some DiVincenzo.
Yeah, I'll have some. I won't be looking at those lineups being like, oh, sweet, I have DiVincenzo in here.
Yeah, of course not. I won't feel good about it.
Right.
It's like whenever Francisco Liriano pitched, you just close your computer, you turn the TV off, you come back in 2 hours and hope that, he didn't implode in the first inning.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah, like he'll give you the, Manny talked about with football when you throw the touchdown and you have no idea who the receiver actually is that caught it. That's kind of what it's going to be like every time like one of these random wings is shooting for the Bucks.
Oh, absolutely. Anything else from this game?
No.
Let's talk about the Pels and the Clippers. Here's your fantasy game of the night by, my standards, 233.5 total. The Clippers 118.5 implied total for them, 115 for the Pels. Pels are 3.5 point dogs at home. Man, I was pretty pissed last night because I was way over the field on Lou Williams. And if you told me that Lou Williams played 41 minutes and had 22 field goal attempts, I would have thought that I crushed with that play.
Yeah,
I didn't.
That's kind of how I felt with Kawhi playing 41 minutes and only getting 56 points.
I know. Yeah, I had a lot of lineups with Harden, Kawhi, and Lou Williams. And, it was okay, but didn't get you where you needed to go. Anyway, I bring that up because it's the second of a back-to-back, but Pat Beverly's out, Kawhi Leonard's out, and Paul George is active, making his LA Clippers debut. I don't know what his workload is going to look like. I'm assuming that he's limited to some extent. Now, mind you, it's a shoulder injury, not a lower body injury, not coming off an ACL, not coming off a ruptured Achilles. So, if the conditioning's right, maybe he does get plenty of minutes and all that hype about him being limited was for naught. But let's start with this team, and then we'll get all the injuries on the Pelicans side, but one at a time here. What are your thoughts on the Clip?
So George is the one that really stands out, especially on DraftKings at 7,900. I haven't seen anything specific about how many minutes to expect, but I haven't projected for 30. He's been doing on-court work with the Clippers for a while, and he's only 7,900 on DraftKings. Last year, without Westbrook on the floor, he had a 33.2% usage rate, 22.7% assist percentage, pace up spot against the Pels that, don't really play good defense. So I really like him at that salary. If he plays less than 30 minutes, then you start to run into a problem. But I think that it's worth the risk. Lou Williams, I'm with you, is I think still a good play. I don't expect 41 minutes, but I expect somewhere in the 34 to 36-minute range. I'm treating it just like Kawhi is in, because obviously
Exactly.
Williams' usage goes way up without Kawhi, but Paul George should eat into that. I'm expecting him to start with Beverly also out. So I'm also expecting Montrezl Harrell to start,
Right.
but Harrell's expensive enough where I still don't think I'll get to a whole lot of him. So it's George and Williams for me, and then JaMychal Green as a decent value
I
option.
like him.
You said you do?
I like JaMychal Green today at that price. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just tough for me to get away from. I don't have a ton of confidence like in his floor. I don't know that Patrick Patterson plays 6 minutes again, but I have him at 28 minutes, and it's a favorable matchup, and he's really cheap.
So pretty much with you on all of this. With Lou, yeah, you got to assume that it's like Kawhi on the floor. The only thing I would say is that instead of playing, you know, instead of most of the minutes he's on the floor having Kawhi on the floor, I'd say even if George isn't like super limited, probably doesn't get above like 32 minutes. So Williams probably sees some more opportunities where it's just him and Harrell out there, which is pretty appealing. Have you ever, by the way, seen a rotation the way that Doc Rivers has been doing it? Um, Literally, the closing lineup on some nights is one starter,
Yeah, just Kawhi.
just Kawhi.
Yeah.
I mean, think how crazy that is, though. Like you're closing with 4 bench guys. It's nuts. But JaMychal Green's closed the last 2 games, which is why I have interest in him. And he's got 60% true shooting on the year. Not a huge usage guy or anything, but you know what? He's played well enough to justify that price. And it's against the team that ranks 3rd in pace or 2nd in pace and 28th in defensive rating. So the matchup is good too.
Yeah, and he rebounds, so
Mm-hmm.
not just scoring dependent.
Yeah, Beverly out, Kawhi out, George in. I'd prioritize these guys as Lou Williams, Paul George. Actually, no, I'd put George, I think, ahead of Lou Williams, but it's close for me. And then JaMychal Green. The rest of this team, I'm not really that interested in. What would your top 3 here be?
George, Green factoring in salary, and then Williams.
Okay, fair enough. I also think when it comes to Williams, ownership is important here because he does have a nice ceiling. Like,
yeah,
when you're getting as much run as he is, how do you play 41 minutes off the bench is the question I have.
Yeah, I mean, he started the second half.
I know. But even it's like, it's just crazy.
I also almost forgot he's 7K on FanDuel. So
yeah,
great FanDuel play.
Absolutely. But if I get him and his ownership is low, I don't think it will be now though. He's just one of those guys that when he starts firing, he get up 25 shots and just rip it. So, someone put in chat, Laffy, I hear you. Lou hurt me too yesterday. Again, you tell me a guy's 41 minutes, 22 field goal attempts, and 12 potential assists. I'm going to go ahead and say I made the right decision there and move on and accept the results. What are you doing with the other side for the Pelicans? Again, one of the highest totals on the slate. The over-under on this game is the highest. And Brandon Ingram has since been ruled out. Lonzo Ball is also out. Josh Hart is out. Jahlil Okafor is out. They got a lot of injuries here, man.
Yeah, they do. Unfortunately, they also still have a lot of guys that could rotate through.
And Gentry's been doing a lot of that, mixing it up this year, surprisingly, too.
So I think the best guess is, so obviously you're going to get big minutes out of Drew, out of Kenrich Williams. Derek Favors has been playing about 29 minutes a game. So all of those guys you can feel pretty good about. JJ Redick played 36 minutes in the last game without Ingram. So his minutes should be there. Where it starts to get, you're kind of just doing guesswork based on the previous game, is Josh Hart started against Houston, played 30 minutes. Etuan Moore was the primary guy off the bench. He played 24 minutes. He closed that game actually over Kenrich Williams, who played 38 minutes without closing. But so I think Moore gets a boost. I think he's the most likely guy that sees extra run with Hart out. You could potentially see extra run for Frank Jackson or Alexander Walker, but I think it's less likely than Moore. So as far as safety goes, or guys that I think have a high probability of being the right extra guy on this team, I would think it's more.
Okay. I wanted to bring one more thing up first. Do you remember? I was just thinking about it. Do you remember last year how good of a start Paul George got off to?
Yeah, before he got hurt.
Yeah. And then do you remember? Obviously, you do, but how insanely inefficient he became when he hurt that shoulder. Like, and remember, they hid it for a little while. We didn't know about that injury for, I guess, like a week or so. And he was shooting like 15% from the field. Let's hope he's fully healed up.
Yeah, that would be nice. Otherwise, I'm gonna lose a lot of money just like I did at the end of last year.
Yeah. And I'm just reminiscing. I don't have any reason to believe that he's not fine. Um, what else do you want to talk about from the Pels here?
Nothing real. I mean, so Drew should just see tons of usage, tons of assist opportunities. He had a bad game last game and still scored like 48 DraftKings points. I think he's obviously one of the best plays on the slate. I think Williams and Moore and Reddick are all good values. I think Favors is a good value. So with Ingram out, the Pelicans are just my highest owned team.
Okay. Um,
Oh, also Jackson Hayes has been listed questionable on.
he's off the injury report
Yeah,
apparently.
on multiple sites, but he's not. He hasn't been on the injury report all day.
Yeah. Derek Favors. I know we talked about him a little, but let me spend a little bit more time on Favors for a second. 29 minutes now in back-to-back games. You know, he has usually been right around or a +1 fantasy point per minute guy. Low usage this season, and it's really hard to look at the on-off numbers with Ingram and all because he wasn't playing a lot of minutes before. Favors wasn't. So he doesn't really have notable minutes without these guys on the floor. But the Clippers have really been hemorrhaging rebounds to opposing bigs. We saw Clint Capella yesterday with monster rebounding totals. That's been one spot where opposing centers have really feasted. Of course, we expect Harold to start, but I don't necessarily know how much of a difference that makes. Where would you prioritize Favors at his position today?
He was really high for me before Ingram was ruled out. Now I think it's a little bit tougher because you can kind of solidify minutes for Kenrich Williams. I still think Favors is one of the better values, though.
So do I. Uh, chat telling me right now we got the Paul George will be on a minute limit. Appreciate that, fellas.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not surprised by that though, Adam. But until I know what the minutes are, like he could be on a minute limit and it's 33 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. Until we get an actual number, I don't really care.
Right. It doesn't help us.
Yeah.
So we need to actually know.
Okay. Doc Rivers confirms the expected. Paul George is officially a go. Rivers said there is a minutes restriction, but it's visual. They're just going to watch him closely and adjust accordingly on his minutes.
Please tell me you just made that up off the top of your head.
Royce Young.
He said, but it's visual.
There is a restriction here, and the restriction changes based on how he looks.
So there's not a restriction at all.
So he's probably not going to play 48 minutes. I think that's
right.
It.
So there might be a restriction.
Right. So basically, if Paul George is playing bad and killing your teams, don't worry, they'll take him off the floor.
What the fuck? That's an odd thing to say. That's worse than his minutes will be monitored.
I'll say that's the Scott Brooks school of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Monitor him, play him 47 minutes.
Doc Rivers says Paul George will not have a set minutes restriction tonight. Says it will be a visual thing. That's from a different Pels guy.
But that's that guy put it in layman's terms and not like gobbledygook.
Yeah,
he's just taking what Rivers said.
He also deleted the tweet. So,
oh, did he?
Well, but then he retweeted Royce Young. So, I think it's basically Paul George is gonna. I'm not changing my 30 minutes on Paul George.
Nope, it's all visual, baby.
Right.
I don't know.
I'll watch the first 5 minutes of the game and understand how my night's going to go based on that.
Also, keep in mind that George is a guy who last year was leading the league in minutes for a while. Remember, he was averaging like 38 and a half minutes per game.
Yeah.
So maybe a minute limit for him means not 38, 40 minutes a game, especially given what type of run we've seen Kawhi and Lou Williams get. It doesn't mean a thing.
Right. I'll say, as far as I know, Kawhi Leonard is still technically playing limited minutes despite playing 41 last night.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. That's not changing my opinion on George.
No.
It means nothing. If honestly, if anything, it makes me a little bit more confident.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
If they were concerned about his health or
He'd be
him
on a
not
strict
being,
limit.
yeah, or him not being in shape yet or something like that, they would be like, he's going to play X amount of minutes.
Absolutely.
They're basically just saying if Paul George is gassed, we're going to take him out.
100%. We're on the same page. So I talked favors. I just want to make sure we cover this game completely because of only 5 games on the slate, and there's a lot to digest here. There's favors. Is there anyone that might be like a low key decent play from either side? We already touched on JaMychal Green. The rest of the value for this Clippers team is pretty ugly. JJ Redick should see more opportunities, but I mean, outside of scoring, he doesn't offer all that much. Uh, just final thoughts on this one before we keep it going.
So the same logic that we applied to Dennis Smith Jr. earlier, where it was just he's really cheap and we don't really know the rotation, so maybe he gets extra minutes, can be applied to Alexander Walker too.
Would you rather have JJ Redick or Gary Harris?
Before the news, it definitely would have been Harris.
Right, but that's why it
Now,
makes this different.
yeah, I think I have them projected like the same.
Okay,
I have them within a point of each other.
you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I have them both playing 36 minutes.
So would it change your mind if I told you that Redick was projected at 23% ownership and Gary Harris was at 9?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's the case. By the way, those ownership projections can be found at awesemo.com. Just go to awesemo.com/join. Use the sign up code Deeper Dive, one word, get 50% off your first month. Ownership projections, player projections, top stack tools, boomer bust tools, all of these developed and used every day by Alex Baker, by Awesemo himself. They're awesome. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page at awesemo.com/join, you have video tutorials on how all of our most popular tools work before you buy anything. Just make sure that when you sign up, use the sign up code Deeper Dive for 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus all access membership, and check out the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well. All right, we covered that in full. Phoenix, Houston, another game with a robust total, 228, 118 total for the Suns, 110 for the Atlanta Hawks, 220, or I already said 228, but the Suns are 8-point favorites here. I want to kick this off with Devin Booker. He's still decent. Like he's very good, but he's still having a decent season. It is a little concerning though to know that, Ricky Rubio is certainly taken a bit away from him. Last year it was a whole lot nicer playing as the legitimate point guard on this team. That's not the case this year, even though he does initiate the offense in many cases. His usage is down from 33 to 28. His assist rate's down from 34 to 28. How do you think that affects him on a day like today where he's basically the same price as Drew Holiday? He's more expensive than Lou Williams. What are you doing?
Yeah, Josh and I talked about it a lot this morning. Like he's having a really good season. He's having a worse DFS year.
Yeah.
Because like he's shooting 51% from 3 this year.
Rubio has helped him with efficiency too, right. I think.
Yeah, so I said to Josh, I said, if you had told me before the season started that Devin Booker was going to shoot 51% from 3 and Ricky Rubio was going to average more fantasy points per minute than Devin Booker, I would have thought you lost your mind.
Well, but, and you have to also think, like, when's the last time Booker had someone that could get him open looks?
Right, exactly. It's made a big difference for him in terms of being better at basketball. It's also taken his usage rate from 33% to 27%, his assist percentage down to about 25.5%. And, obviously that's stuff that hurts him in DFS. In the NBA syllabus or whatever we're calling it, I blanked.
Syllabus, yep.
Yeah. I put him as my biggest bust, and it's not that I don't like him. It's just that he's projected for 25% ownership, and I don't think he's that good of a play at his price point relative to a lot of other guards on the slate. Just because the usage is down, the assist opportunities are down. He's playing huge minutes, which is really nice. So it's not that I think he gets a bad score. It's just that I don't think he's as good a play as guys like, even factoring in salary, as guys like Kyrie or Trey or Luka or Drew or a bunch of other guys.
Yeah, I don't even like. I was gonna say I've soured on him throughout the day. It's not even like I've soured on him as much as just looking at players similarly priced, in equally appealing spots. It just kind of feels like Booker is not a priority. What about guys like Rubio? What about guys like Kelly Oubre, uh, Aaron Baines? You're going to see some ownership on these guys, and some of it rightfully so. Do do you have any interest in those guys I just talked about?
Yeah, I had more interest in Rubio if Ingram was in, just because of Drew. But at 11%, I still think Rubio is a good tournament option. The problem is just that I have him behind Bledsoe, I have him behind Drew in that mid range. Baines is a pretty decent center option. Again, not a lot of great center plays today, so I think that he stands out a little bit. And then Oubre is really cheap. He was a guy that I was considering in cash games prior to the Pelicans news. Now his ownership should come down a bit because he'll be in less optimal lineups just because of the value from the Pelicans.
Okay. So the Atlanta Hawks. I actually had mentioned something in the deep dive, and I said I won't bother listing Hunter's appalling stats. Bembry's are better, but not by much. Ultimately, you're playing them for the minutes in a fast-paced game. So if you're getting to Bembry, if you're getting to DeAndre Hunter, who played 40 minutes last time out, if you're getting to Cam Reddish, you're getting there not because they're good or you're confident. You're getting there because, say, unlike DiVincenzo, who is cheaper, but not by a ton, you at least feel somewhat confident that the playing time will be there today. Of course, dealing with injuries to this team, specifically Kevin Herter being sidelined.
Yeah, exactly. Someone asked me in Slack if I had a preference between Bembry, Hunter, and Reddish, and I said no because they all suck in their own different way. Um, Hunter probably plays the most minutes. He's the worst offensively out of the group. Bembry is a little bit more expensive than Reddish. I have him projected for a little bit more playing time, but he's not as useful when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And if Trae Young's playing 38 plus minutes, he isn't going to have the ball in his hands.
He's useless when he doesn't have the ball in
Right.
his hands.
And then, you have Cam Reddish, who's the cheapest of the group. So that's appealing, but he hasn't done anything this year and he hasn't even played 30 minutes in a game yet. So they all have very, very obvious flaws. They're also all cheap on a slate that doesn't have a lot of really cheap value. Like the Pelicans give you, with Ingram being out, you get more guys in that like 4,500 range as value, but you still don't get any more like 3K guys. So that's where they come in. But it's kind of just mixing and matching them. I'm going to probably set it so that I don't have more than two in one lineup. But it's not that you have confidence in anyone in particular. It's just that out of the three of them, at least one probably has a decent game for his salary.
I'm definitely setting it so I don't have more than two in a lineup. Now, if anyone's wondering, I don't mean including Trae Young.
Right.
You're. I want to make sure you're saying the same thing. You're talking about those three players, right?
Yeah.
Not having more than.
I don't want all three of Bembry, Hunter, and
Right.
Reddish in the same lineup.
No, that's like a combined ceiling of 7.
Right.
So, yeah, I hear you. But all of them, it's funny, all of them in their own right, you pointed it out perfectly, have some viability, but also some huge flaws.
Right.
Hunter should get the most minutes, but he's bad. Reddish and Bembry off the ball, like you said, are bad, but better than Hunter. Yeah, it's tough. How about Trae Young? Just a spectacular season and player. 40% from three. Very solid true shooting percentage. He seems to be getting to the line at a decent clip. Great facilitator. Uh, he's he's just excellent. Um, what are you doing with him today? You already talked about it at the top of the show where you have him ranked in comparison to like Doncic and Yanis, but it's all pretty closely grouped.
Yeah, pretty closely grouped. I'm going to roster a lot of him. Pace up spot for Atlanta. It shouldn't be that difficult to get him in the lineups. He gives you a monster ceiling. Obviously Giannis is going to project higher and going to hit 70 points more often than Young, but Young can certainly get there for 2K less. So I think that's appealing because you can get, Young plus Drew as opposed to like Giannis plus not Drew. Like I don't know, like a 5K guy. So I really like Young. The ownership is pretty high, which I think it should be.
Okay. Anything else for Atlanta? Jabari?
Um, not really. Yeah, it's pretty much Trae Young and then just rotating through all the other trash.
Jabari has been pretty good.
Yeah, he's fine. It's just that I it's not like I can prioritize Jabari at 7,200 over like Markin at 6K or Favors at 5,500.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you this. Of these three guys, Jabari Parker, 7K, Julius or 72, Julius Randle 7 flat, and Porzingis. If you had to put them in order of preference, how would you do it?
I have it Porzingis, Randall, Parker.
Porzingis, Randle, Parker. Okay, so yeah, that's why definitely not a priority. Do you want to touch on anything else from this game?
No.
All right, last one here. Denver and Brooklyn. Denver Nuggets, big favorites. I was really hoping that, I mean, I guess it wouldn't have made a difference because his ownership would have been insane anyway, but uh, having potentially Irving out and then having Levert out too. If you run Dinwiddie's numbers without D'Angelo Russell and Levert last year, really, really solid numbers. Would have been fun, but here we are, and Kenny Atkinson will probably do some wild stuff again. But starting with the Brooklyn Nets, Irving, I'm assuming he's fine. You know, although those shoulder injuries, we just talked about it with Paul George, they can linger, they can be nagging, and they can really screw up, a shooter like Irving. But let's assume that he's perfectly fine. $8,800 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you've got Irving weighing in at 9,800, and then on our sponsor Yahoo, Kyrie Irving is what is he? Hold on, 45. What are your thoughts?
I think he's really underpriced. I think that on FanDuel and Yahoo, he's a good play. I think that on DraftKings, he's cheaper than he should be. I don't think they would be playing him if they were concerned about the injury. He's been playing more minutes lately too. Exceeding 36 minutes in some competitive games. No Levert gives him even more usage than he already was getting. It gives him more assist opportunities. So I don't like the matchup because Denver plays slow, and they're a good defense. But I think that's made up for by the price tag. So I like Kyrie a lot.
Okay. So I'll ask you this same question, but at point guard or shooting guard. You have Trey Young, you have Irving, you have Holiday and Booker, all of them within $700 of each other. Same question: how do you prioritize them? I'm sure it's helpful for the viewers when we kind of put it in order like that for people that make one or two or three lineups.
Yeah, when you factor in the pricing, I think now it's Drew. He was fourth out of the group for me if Ingram was in, but he'll go up with Ingram out. Then I even when you factor in pricing, I have Irving, Young, and Luca basically the same.
Okay. Irving, Young, and Luke. Okay, got it. So the rest of this Brooklyn Nets team, Karis LeVert out. He's going to be out for a while. Just underwent surgery. I guess you're going to continue to get some minutes from Garrett Temple. Just very, very low productivity from him, no matter what type of minutes he's getting. Do you have anything here that stands out? Is Jared Allen cheap enough for you to take a shot at, even though his minutes are all over the place?
Yeah, I'm definitely going after Jared Allen. He's only 4,900 on FanDuel. He's 4,200 on DraftKings. He fouled out in 18 minutes last game. He was in monster foul trouble the game before that as well. They're giving him opportunities. He's just getting in foul trouble. But I expect him to get the opportunity to stay on the floor against Jokic here. His salary is basically just dropped a ton because of foul trouble and nothing else. So, especially with power forward eligibility too, I'm going to be getting to Jared Allen.
I saw somebody tweet at us, and the push notification came up on my phone, but I never clicked on it, so I never really read it. But I think complaining about Allen and you had said like they tried to play this guy the other day.
Yeah, I was the one that said it.
That's what I said. Yeah, I'm saying you said something like they tried to give him minutes. It's just he fouled out and he was in constant foul trouble. How many minutes are you projecting him for?
I have him at 28. I have him at 28. Jordan at 20.
Okay. 28 from Allen at that price is solid then.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that there is a lot of volatility in those minutes, but if Allen stays out of foul trouble, I imagine that he gets the bulk of the minutes at center. I mean, DeAndre Jordan chasing Jokic around doesn't seem like if Atkinson wasn't going to put DeAndre Jordan in the starting lineup against Gobert, I'd be surprised if he's trying to match up with Jokic with Jordan.
Okay. Fast Eddie Fear, Chris Baggs coming up next, live before a lock, bringing you up to 8 p.m. Eastern time. Hey, hit that like button, people. Helps us out. Come on, man. We're giving you the goods. Denver, Nikola Jokic, fat man. Oh, dude. Last game, I think his most productive quarter was the fourth. Maybe he just conserves all his energy because he doesn't have it and then just unleashes in the fourth. But, another game where you're like, all right, Adam, he was okay, but not great. And he shot 1 for 8 from three, 1 for 7 for three the game before. He still got up 19 shots, though. You know what? It's a little bit alarming to me. Over his last 3 games, Jamal Murray's potential assists are above 10. Jokic's is at 6.3.
Yeah, not great.
Weird.
Yeah, it scares me here too because I don't think I'm gonna obviously get to him, especially at 8,600 on DraftKings, but because of how many other options there are and how many guys I like, um, I don't know that I don't think I'm gonna get to the field. Like we have him projected to be the third highest owned player on DraftKings right now. I think I'll be getting more of guys like Kyrie and Luca and Trey and Drew and George and Porzingis. Like I think I'm going to end up being underweight on Jokic, especially if he remains one of the highest owned guys on the slate. And it scares me because it is a pace up spot. And like we've been saying, I don't think there's anything wrong with him.
Okay. I don't either. But I guess there are a lot of other good plays on this 5-gamer. I don't know what to do with him. It's a matchup that doesn't concern me at all. But when I see that, like, I don't. Let me ask you this: nothing wrong with him, but why do you think his rates are down? That's the only thing that it has me second guessing myself.
Well, I mean, the usage is coming up. Like he started out the year with a low usage rate. But yeah, the rebounding and the assist numbers, I think it could just have to do with Murray or just variance too. I would expect that they come up at least a bit. My biggest concern with him, like honestly, is the minutes because it's not that he can't play 36 minutes, but you're not seeing that consistently. Like you're seeing 32 to 34, even in competitive games, a good amount of the time. And when you're comparing him across positions to guys like, you know, Luca and Trey and all these guys that are playing 36 plus minutes with regularity, it starts to become really difficult.
Okay. So outside of Jokic, I had mentioned Gary Harris earlier in comparison to like a JJ Redick at a similar price point. I expect them both to get similar minutes. Will Barton, Paul Millsap coming off a strong game, couple strong games for at least for where he was priced at sub 5K. Jamal Murray, second highest usage guy on the team. He I don't know what you're going to get from him generally, but like I said, his assist opportunities are actually way up over the last few games. Might just be a blip on the radar and he goes back to not being that guy, but it's something to monitor for sure. What are you doing with the rest of the Nuggets?
Within the context of the slate, secondary guys, but I do think that Murray and Barton are both good plays. We're seeing big minutes from Martin consistently. He's also shooting better this season than he has in the past. He's last year he averaged about 25% of his field goal attempts within 5 feet of the basket. This year he's at like 34%. So I think that is why we've seen him be more efficient, and he's averaging like 1.07 fantasy points per minute this year. So I think that he's a good play. It's just that I have a lot of guys ahead of him. If you need a sleeper value play that isn't going to be owned and probably won't work out, but could. If Malik Beasley is ruled out, the Nuggets said that they want to play more Murray plus Morris lineups. So I think like I have Monte Morris projected for 22 minutes at 3,900. It's a lineup they used a lot last year that they haven't been using this year, but they said they want to do more of it. So he's someone that just won't have any ownership and potentially could get a lot more minutes than usual.
Buckeye fan for life says, if you call Jokic fat, quit playing DFS. Most of y'all can't run around the block and calling Jokic fat. I was joking, bud. But you're right about me not being able to run around the block. I play hockey because I can take like 1.5, 2 minute shifts, and then go back to the bench and puke. But all right. So let me ask you a question here. I think it'll help for people that are playing Cruncher or even just building a couple lineups. If you're making groups today, you already alluded to, probably set a group where Bembry, Reddish, and Hunter aren't all in the same lineup, doing at most 2. Are there any other groups that you think are necessarily compelling or need to happen on this 5-gamer?
I mean, so the obvious ones, backup guys, like you don't want Laurie and Thaddeus Young in the same lineup. You don't want DeAndre and Jared Allen. But one that I'll probably make just because that I wouldn't do on a lot of slates is I'm probably going to set it so that whenever I have a Chicago guy, I have one of the main Milwaukee guys. And then whenever I have Giannis, I have one of the main Chicago guys. And the reason for that is just that I think within the context of the slate, those guys have become a lot less optimal because of the Pelicans news. And so I don't like if Lauri Markkanen goes out and scores like 35 real points, the game is obviously competitive and you're getting like 36, 37 minutes from Giannis. So then I would like Giannis in those lineups too. And if Giannis goes out, for Giannis to go out there and have like a huge, huge game, obviously the Bulls need to stay in it. And you have a pretty good idea of where the Bulls production is coming from. So that's one grouping that I'm planning on using tonight that on a lot of slates I wouldn't actually use.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair point. And then for the Pelicans, anything about the Pels that you feel that we should talk about as far as, look, there's a lot of injuries, but I don't feel comfortable playing this guy with this guy, or is it just a spot where you'd be okay with whatever?
I'm going to make sure I don't have any lineups that have more than one of Etuan Moore, Frank Jackson, and Alexander Walker. I think that, like I said, I think they're all guys that potentially could get extra run. I expect it to be more, but I think one of them gets. I think one of them is a good value play. I think it's probably more, but I wouldn't want more than one of them in a lineup. I don't want more than one of Favors or Jackson Hayes in a lineup.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
And I think a lot of these, like, you can set it, but you don't even need to. Like,
right.
A lot of them, you're not going to get, certain players that even show up in lineups. But anyway, that'll do it for us. Thanks for you guys. Thanks for watching as always. Have a great night. Win something. Come back and brag about it. We'll happily shout it out on air. And stick around. Live Before Lock. Fast Eddie Fear. Chris Baggs coming up next. The Deeper Dive will be back tomorrow. It'll be Alex and you. Adam, I get the day off. Well, at least the night off. And then I'll see you back here on Monday. Well, Sunday for NFL, of course, too. Good luck tonight. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports.
All right, we should be starting up now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the awesomemode.com live before lock show. Got ourselves a 5-game slate, which is actually a lot more interesting than a lot of the other 5-gamers we'll have throughout the year. We'll take you through all the finer points as always. I'm Chris Spags, joined by my Thursday buddy, a man who you all love to love, Fast Eddie Fear. How are you doing, Eddie?
I'm extremely well, Christopher. How are you?
I'm good. I got you here. It's a Thursday. I got my lineups in. I feel like we got the news we needed relatively early. Hopefully nothing else breaks and ruins everything.
Yeah, but I hate that. So.
I know you do. You like chaos. You are a bit of a Joker type.
Everyone should like chaos. I honestly, if you don't pay attention, you're not with the news and you don't swap appropriately where available and you don't pay attention, then you should not like chaos. But I think if you're at least watching this show, you are over the line where chaos benefits you. And I think NBA DFS is a really difficult thing. And without chaos and crap up in the air, I don't know how beatable the game is. If you told me that there would never be news and I couldn't swap around it and couldn't make changes, because there are every year between 1 and 9 days where crap happens before locks when I was playing, and now that I'm touting or advising or whatever you want to call it, where those end up being massive days because crap happens at 6:57 and you move correctly and other people don't. And if you follow another key piece of advice I give a lot, you manage to increase your exposure. You pay off 1 to 74 months worth of losses by correctly handling that situation. So I love just one team on a back-to-back tonight. I hate that. That's just another point that I think I generally react a little better to than most people. And it's just one more point that's out the window. So I'm just looking at the same projections as everyone else, and it's really hard to get ahead of the field that way. Or at least that's how I feel. I like me some chaos.
That is tough but fair. For me, as somebody who hosts this show and then makes my lineups and really tries not to do it during the show, I like having chaos right up until about 15 minutes before we start. Then I would like no chaos at all. Just
I honestly feel bad for you guys. Don't get me wrong, it sucks less than me just flat out never being able to play. I'm on completely luck-based, a ridiculous heater over the last 4 or 5 days, and I've always got provisional lineups. I mess around on the sites. It's an important part of research to actually build potential lineups. Then I have screenshots, or they sit here and they never get entered into anything. And I don't know, 9 of my last 10 GPP lineups made over the last 10 days were hitting on, the day I clearly had 0 Corey Joseph and won all the money, and JaVale last night and won all the money. It's just been a sick heater, and I don't get anything from that. So it sucks more for me to never be able to play, but I always feel bad for you guys who are stuck trying to manage a show with me running off at the mouth for an hour while, oh crap, 6:58 news, and apparently Eddie needs me to, or I have to shill fantasy draft real quick, so I guess I'll just try this. And I feel bad for you guys. It sucks. It happens a few times a year. I'm like, yeah, my co-host just laid down $1,000 because he had to, queue me up for a question. Yeah. So
that is a risk that we run every single day. And we do it all for you guys, of course. And as you mentioned, we do have to shill for Fantasy Draft because they are the official sponsor here.
Was it Fantasy Draft? As soon as I said it, I'm like, that's going to come off really bad if I got the sponsor wrong. So
no, you got the correct sponsor that we are shilling for. And of course, Eddie's talking a lot about the Edge in DFS. And there is still one place you can find Edge, and that is paying less rate than you would normally pay on the other side.
Great segue.
Thank you.
Strong segue game,
my friend. I bring my best segue game for you.
I'm blown away. Go ahead.
FantasyDraft.com, of course, the official home of Rake-Free Daily Fantasy, the Hooters main event, a tournament a lot of our guys have had success with over the last few weeks, popping off every Sunday for NFL. But of course, they have NBA slates as well, head-to-heads as well if you want to play those. No rake on them. So go check out FantasyDraft.com right now. Use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial, and go check them out because you are just costing yourself rake. And Eddie, just real fast, because I know you know this thing like the back of your hand. How much do you think the players out there, let's say they're playing $100 a night, and they're winning a little, they're losing a little, how much do you think they're giving away in rake on any given night?
Usually, most players are just GPP players these days. So your standard players giving away $15 to the house or so.
Yeah, so it's a lot of money, which adds up. I mean, if you're playing on the weekends with Eddie and Emac on those shows, that's we're talking what, $450 over the course of a month, and then that's really cutting against your ROI. So check out fantasydraft.com right now and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial. And of course, also the data that we reference throughout the show, especially the ownership projections, also available to you at awesemo.com/join right now. Use the promo code live before lock for half off your first month, or find packages as low as $3.95 a week on there. So head to awesemo.com/join. No like-based deals for you guys. We're trying to keep the site up and running, but of course, those are always a thing that we'll have in the mix too. But just get in there now. Pay for it. Pay for it like a gentleman. That's what I would advocate for. Eddie, let's talk about it here. We got a slate where the ownership is really going towards the Pelicans as we get closer to lock. We just had an update 2 minutes ago, which again, you do get with that Awesemo Plus membership. And on DraftKings and, a little bit less so on FanDuel, but still just outside the top 5, or actually just in the top 5, is Derek Favors, going to be the chalk play of the night on DraftKings. Not going to have any Jahlil Okafor in there. Jackson Hayes is playing, but he is Jackson Hayes, and he's not a guy they're going to be banking on a ton here. Derek Favors is the chalk play of the night. How do you feel about it? Because I'm actually above the field here, and it kind of worries me, but I don't know that it should.
What's the field? I actually haven't looked at it. 35, 40-ish? We in that
38.
ballpark? 38? I'm fine being over that. I think the likelihood is that he's going to play 28, 29 minutes in a pretty ridiculous smash spot. So, I try to get away from the field when I can, but that feels pretty good to me. I don't have a strong take there either way. I don't think that feels about right.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he's in a really strong spot here. He's played just under 30 minutes the last 2 games. I would think, that you could see a little bit over 30 in this spot going against, a Clippers team really has nobody of note inside who's going to prevent him from doing what he wants in terms of crashing the boards. So I'm pretty in on Favors. Another chalk play on the side is also JJ Redick, who did see more minutes last game, also had a pretty decent shooting day. No Josh Hart in the mix, no Brandon Ingram in the mix. How would you feel about a chalk JJ as well, given the fact that, he can disappear a little bit from games and doesn't have that rebounding upside a guy like Favors has?
Yeah, I'd probably run screaming from that one. The 2 chalk plays that I see, I just loaded the ownership that I'd probably try to get away from are JaMychal Green and JJ Redick. It's not that they can't get there. They're obviously really cheap. That's a game we want a big piece of. Although it's worth pointing out, of these 5 games, we have 3 games that are really fast, that are, 228 to 233, something like that. 1 game that's a little more nominal in the low 220s, and then you have the next game, which is sitting at like 213 or something. So I understand why people are gaga for this game, and they should be. Obviously, Kawhi is out. That frees up a lot of stuff, and the Pelicans are missing 4 important pieces of the rotation. So it makes sense to want to be invested, but those are guys who I would have less of than the field at least. Run screaming is a bit much, but JJ Redick, again, not dissimilar to get away from Corey Joseph take. Not nearly that strong of a take because, again, 33% is not 63%. But price isn't that low at $4,500 and isn't going to do a ton but score most times that he's out there. And I'm fine if you land there, but I would come in with less than that JJ Redick. And also the other similar part is that the true monster game is not something I'm super concerned about. Yeah, I guess I could see 45 fantasy points and a 10x JaVale style line out of him. Actually, that's not near a JaVale style line. JaVale goes for 15. He needs a third hand. But both those guys, chalky. JaMychal Green, I think you're dealing with a more limited minutes load. You're not necessarily going to get the ceremonial start out of Pat again. There's who knows how the Harkless minutes go or how many Jerome minutes show up at random. He could play 20-something minutes. So if you get, 22 minutes of JaMychal Green, I like JaMychal Green just fine. But those are probably the 2 guys that I see in the chalk where I immediately go, yeah, I'll probably try some of the other value.
That's some other chalk and also an important lineup news item, which I'll throw to you at the same time. But Kenrich Williams, a guy who's also going to be pretty decently owned. Same price as JJ Redick on DraftKings. I like him. I do think he's a little more capable of doing things Did lose minutes last game to Etuan Moore down the stretch when they were trailing from behind because Kenrich Williams not the best shooter, but still a guy in the mix. And also we got news that Terrence Mann is starting for the Clippers. He is at minimum prices, and I believe he might have been one of your summer league guys, if I'm recalling.
Yeah.
But, so tell me about those two things there, Kenrich Williams and Terrence Mann.
Field of Dreams, getting out there. That's got to be his nickname, by the way. He should be Field of Dreams, by the way. I'm starting the petition. That's really interesting. I'm going to need some time to get a Terrence Mann opinion. I know the player, I know the rates, I know all the good stuff about him, and the spot is very nice. I need to contextualize a minutes projection. So obviously, minimum price, starting, Pelicans, all good in the hood. I'm going to need 10 minutes to figure out exactly how good in this particular hood. But that's a lot of an interesting piece of information. They decided not to run back the threes playing the two that they did yesterday. It's going to be really interesting to see how this team aligns with Paul George. I don't mind Paul George at all in tournaments. It is worth pointing out that our fine friends at Fantasy Labs, who a lot of people, especially people who enter pro DFS players, studs, use for news, just posted sort of vaguely that Paul George will have a minutes limit. That's not really what they said. If you go in there and look at the exact comments, they're like, yeah, we're going to keep an eye on him, is basically what they said, which to me wasn't that concerning of a statement. Like, duh. Well, he hasn't played in forever, and his arm was screwed up, and he's a world-class player. He's getting paid the max. We're trying to take care of him, but we're just going to run him for 31 minutes no matter what he looks like. That would be a really odd statement. We're going to see how he looks and adjust. Well, like, that's kind of what you do with every player every night. Like, hey, Kobe White hasn't missed in 7 minutes. Let's just leave him out there and shoot. That's also known as coaching or watching a basketball game.
Reverse Fizdailing is what they call that profession.
Right. So, this is a pretty good matchup, and the Kawhi Leonard not present, $7,900. I'm I don't know what we have the ownership projected at, but at this point there's so many different factors up in the air. I suspect he's going to be owned in the high single digits.
We've got him just under 20% right now
for Paul George.
Yep.
I'm going to guess that that's high. If that's the case, I would actually probably come in under. But I think I would try to own somewhere around 15% Paul George. I'll just phrase it that way.
But for what it's worth, he's under 10% on FanDuel because the price there a little bit less appealing.
Certainly. And I meant DK specifically. FanDuel is definitely a different kettle of fish.
Yep, I agree. So again, let's circle back there. It's Kenrich Williams for me, if you can.
Oh, yeah. I like Kenrich Williams well more than the other two guys. I feel more secure in the minutes, can play down at a couple of positions. The absence of more bigs leaves the minutes a little more up in the air when you're looking at JJ Redick and a couple of the other guys. I feel well more secure in Kenrich Williams minutes, and I just have him at a higher projection for the same price and lower ownership. So yeah, I like Kenny quite a bit. Wouldn't want to go massively over that. Again, there's some fairly interesting value in other games, but yeah, I like Kenrich Williams well more than the other two guys there. I'd also be more inclined to play Jackson Hayes. I have Jackson Hayes at 19 minutes and 21 and a half fantasy points, and I'm mildly intrigued, but I would certainly rather go there than Dante DiVincenzo.
Mm-hmm. Yes, who is starting for the Bucks, and I guess talk to me about that situation too, because you have some guys there who are cheaper. George Hill closed the game last time out, even though Sterling Brown started the second half with Middleton out. And then you also had DiVincenzo starting. Pat Connaughton, I know some people are big on. He has had big runs, but it seems like he's taking a shift down to rotation, maybe not going to get extra run out of this. So how are you shaking out with the Bucks and the value? And just the value guys first, because I think we should talk a little more about Bledsoe and Yanis too as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bledsoe, and Yanis certainly at this point sort of speaks for himself. I'm a little dubious on the value there. The matchup is obviously fine. My favorite piece of value is actually probably going to end up being site dependent. On FanDuel, I really like Wesley Matthews. I think Wesley Matthews gets back over 30 minutes tonight, and he's the minimum on FanDuel. I have him projected for 7 fantasy points more than Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, I would much rather play Wesley Matthews. I can see a number of ways this game works out for him a little bit more likely. And I just feel much better. I have Dante DiVincenzo at 21 minutes. So that may be lower than many, but they have any number of guys who can come off the bench, and Corver and Connaughton and Hill and Sterling Brown. And I'm dubious about the situation. And DiVincenzo starting can end up costing him minutes in a game where the Bucks are favored by, I don't know offhand, but I have it's probably double digits. I don't know. Middleton's out. I have a feeling they're favored by around 10. So if this game goes squirrely, DiVincenzo starting actually could end up costing him minutes. And obviously, the price is low. No amount of DiVincenzo you get to should massively concern you. But I will click back to the ownership. I do suspect that in a very $3,100 Ben McLemore kind of way, I would be fairly low. We have.
It's also an 11-point spread, by the way. Just
is it 11? Yeah, so that feels about right. So it's well down the list. Or we have him at 17%. I presume I would come in under that. Jackson Hayes, the first immediate pivot that comes to mind. I'm trying to think of other min price or $3,100 guys. Nothing else comes to mind. I would rather Cam Reddish if the $200 isn't doing anything for you. So we have the DeAndre Bembry chalk has fallen off somewhat, which is more reasonable, but I'm a little concerned there too. Obviously, a guy who can have a very big game. Actually, screwed me earlier this year, and I was not on a chalky DeAndre Bembry day when he was.
That was the day that Trey was hurt. So I mean, yeah, he hasn't had a game above like 21 fantasy points with Trey active and functional, which I think is a pretty big distinction to make.
He also got a midday downgrade for illness.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was too probable. So, but okay. So he was fine in the morning, and then the afternoon report came out, and he was probable with an illness. And again, another team where they have a lot of guys who can pick up that time. Mm-hmm. So he could be not 100%. Or they also midday upgraded Chandler Parsons, my favorite male model on the Hawks, was upgraded from doubtful to questionable.
Did you notice his injury, by the way? His body part they listed was not like left knee, right knee. It was knees.
Knees, yeah.
Collective knees.
Just like whole body. Like if I had an injury report, it'd be, Eddie Fear, questionable, old, but
like that
then
Jimmy Butler joke about general soreness, except that
general soreness. Oh, it was such a good one. That was good. I enjoyed Pop's DNP old, but general soreness was also a classic injury designation. So, maybe Bembry only plays 21 minutes. Maybe he doesn't, but they have a lot of wings they can throw out there. Cam Reddish, I don't think has gotten to 30 minutes yet this year, although they announced his limit was 30, and then they announced his limit was 35. And I'm like, oh, guys, that's super useful information. Like, it's right up there with, we will watch Paul George as he plays basketball today. Oh, well, that's good to know. I was worried that, the training staff was like, well, game's starting. I'm going home. Seinfeld rerun. So, like, yeah, anyhow. But I like Cam Reddish. I'm going to go out there and say I think Cam Reddish gets 30 minutes tonight. And he costs 3,300, and Suns and stuff. So I'm in actually for some Cam Reddish over Dante as well. So there's some nice pivoting there. Again, not someone I'm willing to be massively exposed to. The game is still leaky and has some holes in it. You are going to be looking at Jabari, and I'm curious, what do we have Jabari at, especially on FanDuel? I really like me some FanDuel Jabari Parker.
On DK we have him at 13. Let me just pull up FanDuel.
I'd want more than that.
Jabari we have at 20% on FanDuel, so a little more.
I'd want more than that. I'd have 20 and 30 respectively on DK and FanDuel, sticking with the alphabetical order there. Yeah, I really like the spot. There's a huge ceiling, and he's just not priced for it yet. End quote. Like, he should just be a little higher on. Now there's some very good price plays. Who are well cheaper than him. There's some really great mid-range plays today in Kelly Oubre, 5,500 both sites. Wendell Carter Jr. on DK, forward eligibility, 5,600. I'm a big fan of those guys, and feel free. I think they told me my rankings are free today. I have only had to make 2 updates, so I haven't made an update in a little while. But anyone I don't mention, you need an immediate picture of my opinion on. Feel free to go there and take a look at those. The guy I think I would be most over the field on is Nikola Jokic. It's a bit risky because it's Nikola Jokic and he just plays a little bit. They're at home. If this team doesn't have Kyrie, maybe they get beat up a little bit. You can see it going squirrely a couple ways, but the matchup is just ridiculous. Unlike they started Jared Allen the last game against Rudy Gobert, which was unbelievably stupid. Don't get me wrong, like DeAndre Jordan is not a good matchup, but when there's another guy who can't shoot, he's just a better job. And I watched Rudy Gobert play against Jared Allen twice last year, and it was an absolute beating. I compared it to a snuff film. And they're like, oh, we'll do that again. But clearly they're trying to give Jared Allen a lot of time. I really like both centers in this game, both sites. I would have significantly more. What is our current projection on a man with a beautiful head of hair? So I consider us soul brothers, really. Jared Allen, what do we have him projected at?
Allen, we have at 16% on DK, dual position eligibility there, and on FanDuel 15%. So pretty close.
Yeah, you can run out some 4-position center. I would have more than both those numbers. Those are a little higher than I expected, but again, that price is really cheap, and it's only a 5-game slate, so you gotta keep your head on a swivel when you go slate size to slate size. But as I recall, I will actually take a look. I thought he didn't stop you. I'm fairly certain the Nets game was they did play twice last year. I'm trying to remember. I think this is one of the things Jokic went stupid. I mean, let's take a look at some games. Why are you not downloading? Hey, there we go. Let's see. But I remembered thinking that Jared Allen was still able to get his and use his athleticism and got some blocks. And here we go. All right, 2 games last year between these two teams. In the first one, Nikola Jokic, kind of a pedestrian game, 37 points, 21 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks. Yeah, that's not good. But on the other side, Jared Allen, who played 30 minutes, which is about what I think he would see tonight if he doesn't get in foul trouble, which is slightly better than a 50-50 proposition. 18-9 with 2 assists, a steal, and 5 blocks. It's a perfectly acceptable game.
One of his breakout games, I think.
Yes, it was. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. This was early November. I had forgotten that, but in retrospect, you're absolutely correct. And in the second game, Jared Allen only got 23 minutes, 15-5 with an assist and a block. I'm not crying in my Cheerios for 24 fantasy points or whatever that would be at $4,200 in just 23 minutes. So again, small sample, and again, 2-game sample isn't a lot, but the eye test was he was still able to get some stuff done down there. And Jokic, one of my favorite basketball players, I just got a comment. Who do you think is more athletic, Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic? Is there some context for this? Was this a thing on an earlier show?
They were debating if Embiid or Jokic had better conditioning on the strategy show. I don't think that one came up. I think that would clearly favor the guard, I would think, but yeah.
There's a weird modern definition of athleticism that feels weird to me, or maybe I take personal exception. Like, I've always considered myself a good athlete. I can play a lot of sports. I consider myself coordinated and sort of have a good, but athletic has sort of become just a statement of lowest possible body fat and vertical lift.
Yeah, 40 speed, 40 times.
Right, which is don't get me wrong, those are incredibly great and important things, but whenever someone says athletic to me, I just take it differently than other people. I don't know what that means. I think pretty clearly Jokic is in better shape. I don't like, there are plenty of guys who are in good shape. I mean, have you seen MMA fighters recently? Some of these super heavyweights, these guys are remarkable athletes and look like the guy next to me on the next bar stool. So anyway, we don't have time for this, but that's an odd question.
That's like Cain Velasquez when he debuted in WWE for the Saudi Arabia payday against Brock Lesnar. He took off his shirt and he's like doughy, but he's the same doughy guy who beat the crap out of Brock Lesnar in an actual match. So I would say that's he can have a flab and still be a super athlete.
Story. The other game for Jokic, by the way, I buried the lead. 37-21, 3-1 and 2 in the first game. Second game, only 25 points, only 14 rebounds, but then 10 assists. So he doubled in that one. So his worst game against Jared Allen starting for the Nets last year was 67 fantasy points in 2 tries, which isn't to say I project him anywhere near that, but I have him, I think, higher than other people. I have him at 52 fantasy points tonight, and he costs 8 something. So, yeah. I'm going to go there.
Chat really wants you to go back to Terrence Mann. Terrence Mann, a big issue. They want to know. You've had time to simmer on it.
But I haven't done crap with it because I was busy talking about my athleticism. Which, that's just me being a bad host. That was
it's fair. I mean, look, I think I'll kibitz for a second while you get your brain function going. But you had questions about Lou Will and Paul George. I mean, look, I think the thing to remember is that Terrence Mann has been a good permanent player, but we've seen it before where guys coming into a starting group, you're not going to have the same usage, you're not the same opportunity, the same runway. I think Terrence Mann being in a starting group at a minimum price, he might be more appealing than Bembry, might be more appealing than some of these guys to you, but still he's going to be competing for shots with Paul George, with Lou Williams, with all these guys. So I'm not going to be loading up on him, but people are also curious too, would this downshift your JaMychal Green interest? And I think that's a different question entirely. He's been playing closing minutes ahead of his Vika Zubac, and that's why he's getting so many rebounds. I don't think that the Mann thing is really related to the JaMychal Green thing, but I stalled for about 90 seconds there. So Eddie, give me your thoughts.
One sec. I have a category of notes for coaches.
Specifically for Terrence Mann.
No, I don't have a Terrence Mann access folder here yet. And yeah, I'm looking at freaking Microsoft Access. I go old school. When it works, I don't mess with it. Download that.
D versus CA saying Terrence Mann just sits in the corner on offense. I mean, that's what's going to happen if you're playing with Paul George in his return. But
maybe. But run that through that. Talk about something else. I need like another 90 seconds. Give me 2 minutes, everybody, and I'll give you an actual minutes and fantasy points projection, which will hopefully go better than Malcolm Miller's went, because I thought he got like 20 minutes. He got 7 or whatever. But,
also, real OS in the YouTube chat. Whoever's running our handle replied already, but LOL, stay on topic, guys. Otherwise, I'm heading over to another YouTube channel. You can head over there right now, my friend. It's
a little bit rude, but he's not wrong. Like I said it before you did. He's absolutely.
It's a 5-game slate. We look.
Yeah, but it's. I want to give people news at 6:40 so they can do something with it, not 6:56 when we finish the last game. That's bad hosting. That's my fault. You are correct. I am wrong. But I don't want to give you wrong information because I do it too quick. So just give me a whole Terrence Mann minute here. I'm almost done. I'm moving many things, about to recompile my lineup.
The thing to remember here is, guys, that I'm driving the machine still. So I know when we have to hit on our things, and I will get back to everything. I think maybe sometimes Eddie's like one of those toys. You pull the string on the back. Sometimes he goes, but I always get you guys your answers. So please just trust the process. Trust the process. It's worked out for the Sixers. It'll work out for you.
I have Terrence Mann for 20 minutes and 14.4 fantasy points.
Okay. So that doesn't seem like a great play then.
No. Now, I also would have him with an extremely high delta, but Doc will frequently start people and play them very little time, including Ivica Zubac all the time, and Mo Harkless yesterday, and I think it's unlikely he closes. The matchup is obviously supreme, so you'd have to look at the possibility of blowout. It's probably out there closing. There's not difficult to spin a scenario where he gets 26 minutes and 26 fantasy points. He would project fairly close to me to Dante DiVincenzo. I would slightly prefer from a raw projection standpoint DiVincenzo.
Oh, that's okay. That's a tough day to be the man. Tough day to be Juana Man, tough day to be Terrence Mann, but either way. Let's keep going here and talk about some of the other guys here. And I think we should talk more about Bledsoe and Yanis. Yanis obviously going to benefit quite a bit from Middleton. He's going to be the guy you really have to make the choice of, the Sophie's choice of the slate, whether you're going to be playing him or not. He's one of the chalk plays of the day. Though his ownership has come down a bit, perhaps sanity prevailing because we have a lot of good guard plays that are going to cost some money to get to. But Bledsoe has been also really good, 1.4 fantasy points per minute in core time without Middleton. Giannis goes up to 2.1. His assist rates take a jump. His rebound rates, his usage rates take a jump. How would you handle Giannis and Bledsoe tonight? And Giannis in particular, because if you're paying for him, you're going in a very different direction with your roster compared to going with guys like Lou Will, Bledsoe, Holiday.
Yeah, I don't have a take. I sat here and I struggled with this, and I really try to never manufacture a take when I don't have one. And I don't have a take. I really don't have an issue with any amount of Giannis you want to play. If you want to play 0% Giannis and go, look, I love Trae Young's spot. I love Eric Bledsoe's spot. I'm just going to play a lot of Bledsoe. I love Luka Doncic's spot. There's a lot of mid-price guy. This guy is expensive. He is exorbitantly expensive. I'm just going to take a shot that he only gets 53 and they're favored by double digits and they just blow them the hell out. and I lap the field because I'm playing guys who cost 2K less and they scored 10 more fantasy points, I have no problem if you said I want to play no Giannis. If you went, it is Giannis in an amazing smash matchup, I'm playing every bit I can put my hands on, I'd be like, I really can't argue with that. I choose not to manufacture a take for good television. It's a fine spot. I could talk about the head-to-heads for a while. I rewatched some footage earlier today. I was impressed with how well Lauri Markkanen did. It is still weird to, know that he is to some degree injured, but I remember in coverage of the games last year being concerned with his more slight frame, certainly relative to Giannis, and what was certainly for me a perceived lack of lateral quickness on defense, that he went out there and had a couple very solid games against Giannis. I believe he actually, I'll look when I get a second, but we're behind, doubled both his games in that matchup last year with Giannis covering him some fair bit of the time. Looked okay on offense, looked legitimately much better than I thought on defense. Again, they had a number of guys on Giannis, as every team does, so the whole team doesn't foul out. But
the 250 fantasy point games last year, which did include double doubles, including one 17 rebound game.
Yeah, he was. I remember that was the weird one. I mean, that's kind of an anachronism, but he's a better rebounder than you would think. So I don't mind like 6K Lauri, and he's not out of play on FanDuel, and I suspect his ownership will still be kind of muted because everyone's looking at the same information, and most frequently recently when you see Lauri Markkanen, you see injury next to it. And again, to my eye test, whatever that matters for you, and I'm fine if it doesn't matter at all. This is a bad week to mistrust my eye test, but yeah, I like me some Lauri Markkanen and Giannis. I got nothing. Your exposure between 0 and 100% is good by me. I really cannot generate a take. I'm not surprised if he scores 90 fantasy points tonight. I'm not surprised if they win by 26 and Bledsoe goes off and he only plays 24 minutes. Again, nobody's on a back-to-back but the Clippers, so that doesn't factor into a minutes projection for me. Sorry, I give it when I got it. I really have nothing to add on Giannis. He is ungodly. When you talk about guys' points per minute and the number starts with a 2, clearly the upside is absolutely absurd, but I really like a lot of players who cost 6K, 7K, 8K, 9K, 10K. Luka Doncic predicts slightly better for me, point per dollar on DraftKings. Actually, well better for me. Not well better, but significantly better than Giannis. So in one lineup, I imagine I don't get to him on either site, but that's certainly not by any intentional force of exclusion.
So I'll tell you my logic on it, and you can tell me if you find this to be more to your liking or not.
Please.
I think the issue that I have is that, so Giannis to me, I think, let's say he gets 35 minutes. Let's say the 2.14 fantasy point per minute thing without Middleton holds up. He's putting, let's say he gets 35 minutes of court time. We're talking 70-ish fantasy points.
72.8, yeah.
So then we also could have Lou Williams going off in that spot. No Beverly. Paul George going to take some usage away, but Lou has been about a 1.3 fantasy point per minute player in games without Kawhi. You also have Bledsoe, who's had a benefit without Middleton. You also have Drew, who has a benefit without Lonzo and without Ingram. He had a really good game last time out, even though he shot 6 for 21. Like, I think the issue to me is you have those three guys. Trae Young as well has been a beast. You could say he's probably due for some regression, but he's had over 20 shots and 10 assists in his last 3 games. There's a real correlation to Collins going out and his success. So, like, I like all those guys. You cannot get to those guys and Giannis. You can't even get to 2 of them with Giannis, I think, for the most part.
Right.
So I'd rather do that. I'd rather load up on guards and get away from Giannis, even though I think Giannis is the best play by far on the slate.
You can build, I won't say what sites, so this will restrict the information a little bit. One of the lineups I have has Drew and Luka and Jokic in it. And you can't really swap one of those guys out for Giannis,
right?
Unless you're turning all your 5K guys into $3,300 guys. And I like this lineup more because I'm not surprised to get. I almost project 60 fantasy points out of Luka. I think he's like 1 short of that for me, but I'm not surprised if you get that out of Drew. He would have hit it last game if he shot well. The matchup is plenty there, contributes on both ends. Like, I'd love, especially $8,200 Drew Holiday. Luka, I've already spoken extensively about Jokic, so and obviously Trae Young again. The ability of Trae Young and Luka, who I like, will be sort of paired at the hip forever. To put up monster games in adverse environments this year should not be like underestimated. Like, these guys are routinely throwing up 60 burgers in bad spots. It's nuts how well those two guys have, like, their prices are now approaching where they should be. But and this production I really don't think can hold over the course of a season, but it's really worth pointing out. And then you just have guys like Drew Holiday and Jokic in the 8s. I generally end up getting away from it because you're trying to play as many guys as you can who can put a massive the hell number out there, and Jokic either limits that number by 1 or forces your value to get much more specious. So yes, generally I suppose you forced me into a take, by the way. No, I said I don't have a take, and you forced me into a take, Chris Baz. I called you Chris Spaz.
I know, that was mean. Are you just being a bully now?
I think that was Freudian or something.
Better than the other things that rhyme with my last name, I guess. But yeah, I think that's I think that's
terrible.
A fair take to me. Look, I think it's just I came into the day I start my day doing the Four Corners video and my columnist switch and hedge on the site. And I was like, I love Yanis. I don't see how I don't have a ton of him. He's the numbers are insane. I don't see any reason why not to get there. And now that we actually have the slate in front of us, okay, if these 4 guys can get me 50 and Giannis can get me 70, even if he gets you 80, it'll be a little bit tougher, but I think these guys are going to do that.
But if they get 50 and he gets 80, and again, we're obviously rounding a lot of edges in this analysis, then you want your 80. If they get 60 and he gets 80, you kind of don't want it really depends on where exactly the 3K value came in. This is a thing where it's about lineup construction and these decisions not existing in a vacuum. All the time, I have 2 days off a week, and on your average Monday or a Friday, I get approximately 18 questions about the slate. And someone says, what do you think about this guy? And my standard response is, I don't have a show today, so I haven't done the deep dive, and I don't really want to speculate. And they're like, but I know you know this matchup. What do you think about him? And it's well, it doesn't matter, because unless I know all the other matchups, I can't have an educated comment on how it relates to them. Giannis going against the Bulls last Thursday might have been the greatest play in the universe and vastly superlatively better than it is tonight. So nothing exists in a vacuum. So, for whatever amount you choose to fade him, you are exposing yourself to him just ending your night. But again, there are implicit votes that whenever you build a lineup with Giannis in it, you are implicitly making a statement against any Drew Holiday, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Nikola Jokic guys that aren't also in the lineup, and making a statement for the 3K value and against the 5K value. There are correlations with your endorsement of certain players. So it's really complicated. I wasn't going to give a take, but yes, if you're talking about how I would play it, I probably would come in a little bit under, because I really like Drew Holiday in this spot. I really like Luka Doncic in this spot. And it's not like he didn't just beast the crap out of the Knicks, 8 days ago or whenever the hell that game was. So, there we have it. Good conversation. It's a good talk through.
I think it's one of those things you talked about, where when you're building lineups, it's a different thing, because there's a theoretical thing you go into it if you're just looking at it without building lineups. And when you start to build the lineups, it just kind of makes more logic to me, or makes more sense logically to me to go that way. But doesn't mean I don't have a good amount of Giannis, but does mean that I'm less than the 50% that I thought I would have earlier in the day. Yeah. Let's talk for some of these other guys that we haven't hit on yet. I guess Lou Williams we touched on a little bit, but where do you shake out with him? Just give me your quick thoughts on Lou, Holiday, Bledsoe, and Trae, because I think those are the 3 guys who I got a lot projection wise, and just doing the mental math.
FanDuel man for Lou. I don't know. 7K versus the Pellies when you're $700 cheaper on FanDuel in a good matchup. DK, again, we haven't projected almost the same as Drew Holiday. I do like Drew Holiday significantly more on DraftKings. He's $500 more. I haven't projected for well more than that investment differential. So I like really going there. But it's funny when you mention those guys. They are all in a group in our current ownership projections within 0.5% of each other, unless this has been updated. We have Holiday, Trae. They are within 1%. I apologize. Kyrie Irving squeezes in there, which is interesting. I will go ahead and say that number is almost certainly high. We have 28% Kyrie Irving right now. Not that many people swap, and I can't imagine, giving his somewhat fluky injury designation on the road in Denver with many other players. Now, he's incredibly too cheap at $8,800. So, today a great night to watch the news, by the way. Again, yesterday was a good show, and one of the reasons was the entire, Wiggins thing. Wiggins came up during the show, and Josh brought him up, and at that time, we got news that Teague was in. during the show, and it was just like, oh, okay, then you should look at him. And I said on the spot, well, just make sure Teague is in and start again playing 30 minutes. The more that comes down, I believe in this Wiggins usage. And as I'd stated, I really don't like the spot for Karl Anthony Towns. So definitely look at Wiggins swapping into him if it goes. And then Josh and I were still on the air, and the news came that Teague won't start. And I'm like, oh, okay, I would definitely swap into Wiggins. He's going to be about 4% owned. And he ended up being, I think, exactly 4% owned. And yeah, that really worked out. So in this case, it's getting yourself into most notably Spencer Dinwiddie, who right now seems fine. So if you're like FanDueling it and you want to run that, I have no complaints. But especially obviously swapping into that in the absence of LeVert and Kyrie, this is to some degree obvious, so I won't waste any more time on it. But you mentioned that Trae Young has been a truck. I don't think Chandler Parsons is going to mess up his mojo. I don't know quite where to go here. I do like him slightly less at price on DK than Luka on FanDuel. I like him a little bit more than Luka, though still very close. And not terribly close for me on DK. I again don't have a particularly strong and brilliant take beyond that. Yeah.
I mean, look, if Trae can go off against Denver, I really don't know what's going to stop him. I think very highly of Denver defensively, and Phoenix has been pretty good on a defensive efficiency rating basis. I think maybe due for some positive regression against them. But yeah, like Trae, it's really, he's playing out of his mind, and I find it hard to not play a good amount of him today. Even though it does feel a bit like a point chase.
I don't think it's any kind of point chase. I mean, he also had monster games against San Antonio, and we talked about this on the show the other day. He went off and beasted against San Antonio, and I mean, Trae. I'm not worried about the Phoenix matchup. By the way, Trae, when we talk about Kyrie, Trae just played Denver and had 60s, I believe. I'm just going to do. Little looking for
also, we did just get a super chat too that I just want to give a quick shout out. Justin Swearingen, thank you for the super chat. And he wants to ask about your recap of FanDuel GPP value. So I guess finish your thought, but then if you want to give him that, because we do try to support our super chat.
Trae Young has 68 points against Denver this year. He had 65 points against Orlando, and he had 58 points against San Antonio. So, like when you're like, well, I think the Phoenix defense has been pretty good. It's just like, I am literally past giving a crap of like, their defense is not as bad as a Phoenix defense, but I don't care. It's almost unrelated. He's becoming one of those guys who their combination of, force of will is just out there doing his thing. Again, there are guys where matchup really matters. We talked about Clint Capella yesterday. Clint Capella really runs what's blocked. There are very rarely Clint Capella goes out in a bad matchup and throws up a 50 burger, but he can quite frequently get there in a good matchup. Trae Young is not that particular animal. FanDuel GPP value, well, I would love to. I don't know if Jared Allen costs. I mentioned Cam Reddish. I think he sees a season high in minutes tonight. I mentioned W. Matthews, Wesley. Other guys I'm interested in. I mean, I need some specific questions here. So there's obviously the triumvirate of maybe even a quaternary of various pieces of cheap New Orleans guys we can expect to do crazy things here. And I would have all of these guys ahead of, say, Amir Coffey. But you have, not Amir Coffey, Terrence Mann. I get my Summer League Clippers a little confused. So we have Frank Jackson, possible stupidity. We have Alexander Walker, possible stupidity. Jackson Hayes, I think, is the minimum price as a center. Let me check that. I'm not at the right position. Yeah, he's minimum price as a center. So, and then Etuan Moore, I got to check his price on FanDuel, is $3,600. So, the spend up option among those guys. Yeah, I would have to project Etuan Moore the highest. Now, let me take a gander at their ownerships and see if that projects how I would rank them. But I have Etuan Moore nominally for the highest minutes of those guys at only 24. So I'm none of them seem incredibly solid. but the matchup is nice. I'm not sure how many of them can get there, but let me just take a look at some of our numbers on these guys. 22% Frank Jackson on FanDuel. Wow, people lack the value. JaMychal Green, 43% on FanDuel. Okay.
I like JaMychal more than you do. Generally, I feel like this is one of our first head-to-head butting things. It was about JaMychal.
That's right. You were like, I really like JaMychal Green. And it's funny because he was crap that night. Like we had a colloquy where you were like, I like JaMychal Green. And I was like, I don't like him. And he was bad that night, but put up like 40 burgers on either side.
Yeah.
And so I remember
always the best. Always the best when you miss this.
Yeah. I like this whole week has been me getting lucky and looking good from it. But yeah, that was a very similar.
So we'll see. I just have encouraged 3 straight games of 10 rebounds plus, and I do think him playing the minutes for Zubac down the stretch where you don't need the size for Zubac, I think is encouraging, but wouldn't shock me if he blows up in my face tonight. Also, we got another super chat. Shout out Anthony Davis. I think the biggest super chat I've seen for $10. Big baller. But he's asking thoughts on Maxi Kleber now that he's coming off the bench. He's had a couple good games there. But also ones that Porzingis not been playing as well. You'd think he's going to bring it versus New York tonight. How do you feel about Maxey coming off the bench?
I'm fine with it. The price has come up. So, I mean, it's really difficult for me to target him in a world of, I mean, it's going to be site dependent here. But again, minimum price Jackson Hayes or 100 over on DK or Jared Allen, who's 42 and 49. So he just won't price in as a priority for me. But obviously the matchup is about as good as you're going to get. I think I have him for 31 minutes, which feels, pretty good. The time has been there, though I can't say I feel that's super solid. I think, there is still a minutes floor there for him with a lot of moving pieces and a Dallas team that is almost entirely healthy. I want to check my poll on that, but I don't think they are minus anyone now. And you're still, you're gonna have some weird bigs minutes there where sometimes other teams go small and you get Dorian Finney-Smith in there playing down, and then you have Kleber and Powell and Porzingis, and so I think the likelihood is that he gets his 30 minutes and he's like 51 or something. So kind of rather get to Powell for what feels like a slightly better upside, but in this matchup actually favors Kleber, a little bit more. Pretty decent shooter out there, so like I'm fine if you have Kleber. I got a long way around of saying, okay, I don't think it's a bad play. If you have one lineup and you put Kleber in it, he does not math in as a guy that's like, got to get him in there. But if you're looking for the spot where, Kleber at 2% on puts up 40 against the Knicks, yeah, I think that could really happen.
All right, I'd like to speed round some questions rather. But first, anybody else you want to hit on that you feel like we haven't touched on that the people need to be aware of while they're finishing their lineup builds?
Yeah, let me look through some stuff and make sure I don't have any screaming at me notes. I already gave Wendell Carter a mention, but presuming he stays out of foul trouble with especially likely in a game against Milwaukee, he's still too cheap at $5,600. If you're not running Derek Favors, that's the first guy I'm immediately looking to pivot there, and works fine in that 4 center lineup with Favors and him at forward, and Jared Allen can pick up forward fees. There's lots of fun forward centers that you can get into there. Worth a conversation to talk about Rubio and Booker. They're not owned as high as they should be for spots against Atlanta. I don't know how to put it any better than that. Like Atlanta's defense is not good. Their ability to give up lots of turnovers is really significant. Obviously, Booker this year, while being very efficient and playing very well, just having Rubio around knocks down just the number of times he touches the ball and the number of assists he picks up. So we haven't seen the stupid upside games, but it's going to happen at some point, and this is as likely a spot as any. So our current ownership, I will go back to DraftKings real quick for both Booker and Rubio. Last time I looked, obviously the price, moving some people. We have 13% Rubio, and I would imagine we have 25% Devin Booker. Okay, good on you, internet. That's $8,100. If I'm not playing Drew Holiday, I'm very happy to make that pivot and save $100. And you shouldn't be terribly happy if you need to make that move.
While we're talking Suns, any Baines interest for you?
Sure. Again, the price, I think he's 59 today. Is where he comes in, and against the revolving door of centers there. I don't think either Damian Jones or Alex Len are out of play as center values to sprinkle in here and there. It's difficult to project the situation. The matchup is not what it once was when you had Ayton down there, which, by the way, Ayton, read the bottle, just saying. But against it's not as good of a matchup as it was, but you're going to have one of these days where one of those guys spikes, 32 fantasy points in 24 minutes. It's a little more likely to be Alex Len, but someone will emerge from that pack at some point and take the reins on that job. But I like Baines, and I'm sure you like Baines. You're a Baines truther.
No, I'm actually not big on him today because of favors, but yeah, no, I think he's at a fine enough price. I have a little bit of him, but somebody in the premium Slack was asking. I'm trying to balance the super chats because super chats are flying in today. So let's do these real fast. So give me like your soundbite answers on these. Barfly Josh, thank you, or Barfly OGSH, which I think is just a dyslexic Josh. Talk to me out the Bulls guards. I like Dunn. Who would be the Bulls guards you like? Are you point chasing Kobe White 7 for 13 3-point shooting day?
No, I'm probably not gonna. I think it's not a particularly good matchup for his style of play. I don't think the minutes necessarily hang where they have been. I don't think they regress super, but I think he's more often going to fall into that 22-24 range. And we got that game at low ownership. And I was huge on it. That was Corey Joseph day. And I was like, I straight up prefer Kobe White. And then, that obviously worked out. The ownership will be double what it was then. The matchup, not one I think is particularly advantageous for him. And as opposed to 41 and 42 on that day, he's now 48 and 54. So obviously not out of play. Would correlate strongly with a blowout for me, by the way, because he will be out there. So would negatively correlate with Yanis, for example, and obviously, Levine and Markkanen and so on and so forth. I don't have a problem with Dunn. The price is sitting where you can certainly see it happening. But yeah, for the Bulls, I'm sort of more on the Hosses. Again, we didn't even mention Zach LaVine.
Yeah.
The matchup not as good as say Rubio, or rather Booker, who ends up profiling similarly as a player this year. But the price really attractive, and we saw his one blow up game this year against Memphis. I want to say that's going to happen with a fair degree of frequency. So again, doesn't compare to Drew Holiday rankings and other guys' points per dollar, but you're getting these guys in a spot where you'd want to sprinkle them into your lineups. But okay with Dunn. Again, it's a zig when they zag kind of world a lot of the time, and it just doesn't project that well points per dollar. So priced up, more popular, I'll probably stay away from Kobe.
All right, William Stevens, also our last super chat. Then we're gonna go through all the premium Slack either ors, but just give me your one name pick here. Cam Johnson, I presume, or Mo Harkless, and Parker or Randall for a FanDuel GPP.
Parker.
And what about Cam or Harkless?
Yeah, I need to relook at that, and he's starting there. Ooh, 1 sec. I gotta relook those up. I have them very close at this point, and the whole Terrence Mann thing is walking things out for me a little bit. So I'll go with Cam.
Okay,
yeah, Cam for me.
All right, let's go through the premium Slack either ors. But we talked about Bucks value. Can I play a cheap Damian Jones at center on DK?
Yes. Can you play him? Absolutely. Now, again, Jared Allen is $4,200. That's like, I don't know, $500 worth it, but like I have him projected for 11 more fantasy points or something. So like I really don't want to use a forward or center spot on him because you just have Favors and Allen and Jackson. Play Jackson Hayes. Like you obviously can play Damian Jones. Go ahead, but I'm going to play Jackson Hayes in that spot a lot. Who there's just any number of, hey, we've run Derek Favors more than we want to, so we're going to let Jackson Hayes play 24 minutes tonight, a la JaVale McGee. Like there's just ways you can get there. I like that matchup actually a little bit more, so I would be more inclined to do that. But yes, you can obviously play, presumably starting, upside is certainly there at a nominal price, Damian. But yeah, it's not someone I'm trying to get to.
Reddish, Moore, or Harkless? No site given.
Moore, absent all other considerations.
Allen or JaMychal Green for a DK single entry?
Allen for me.
Baines, Jordan, or Wendell Carter for DK GPP?
Baines or Carter. It's not the under Jordan. I mean, you need him to you need Jared Allen to foul out again or so. I'll take Wendell Carter, but again, I would have those other two very close.
How many Pelicans is too many on FanDuel?
It depends on the context and how many Clippers you have and a number of other things. So in an abstraction, I can't really answer that question, but I think 6 because the site doesn't let you do it. Is there a 5 cap there? I don't know, but FanDuel, a lot of them are really incredibly cheap. And again, it matters which ones. Are you spending up on FanDuel on favors? Do you have Drew in there? Like the more that are cheap, it changes. So you need other information for me to answer that question correctly. But It's a shorter slate, so stacking games isn't that crazy. I'd be surprised if I would want to play under any circumstances more than 4.
Oubre or Wendell Carter?
It's a good question. Raw points, I have Oubre projected slightly higher. I imagine the ownership is similar, so I'll say Oubre and double check my theory there.
Booker or Holiday for DK? I'm going to assume a GPP.
We have Oubre. I'm basically tied on those two. We have Oubre like 2% higher, and I have him slightly higher projected. So meh. What was the other one?
Booker or Holiday for DK GPP?
Holiday.
Lowry or Favors for a FanDuel GPP with Yanis in the lineup?
Whom were Favors?
Lowry. Let's see.
No, I don't. Which Lowry? Sorry.
Yeah, Lowry Markkinen. Yeah.
Lowry.
Not Kyle Lowry. That'd be an odd question.
Sorry, you're killing me here. Yeah. Actually, Lowry probably.
Lou Will or Paul George?
Lou Will.
All right. I think those are the main either ors. Some more Terrence Mann questions still. Terrence Mann, does he affect Montrezl Harrell at all is a question. I don't know why he would, but would he?
No. I mean, he does very slightly in the negative, but literally you'd be talking about 1/100th of a point because when he's starting instead of presumably Harkless, now some of that time, which would have been at the 3, doesn't amortize. Everybody take a drink down to the 4, down to the 5, where you get, there's a relationship between him and JaMychal. And so yes, it is incredibly minorly negative that he is starting, but it would adjust Harrell's minutes projection by 12 seconds or something. So yes, it's technically negative. I think over time that starting lineup change would. We're locked, so I'll take a second and wax on the question a little. Over time, yes, I do think it's like a 0.1% negative, but no, not for the purpose of playing Harrell or not.
All right, and we are locked, as Eddie mentioned. So I'm looking up the ownership for the 1-1 today, which is confusing because their $1 tournament is the and 1, and apparently today is the 1-1. It's $11, Eddie. That's the reason why we're not. We have a logic to our DK names, as we've discussed many times on this show.
Yes, yeah, and you actually brought to mind when I was like, "There's no point to this." You're like, "Actually, it's that." I'm like, "You're right. I don't know how I didn't figure that." I remember you saying, "No, it's this," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's obvious. I don't know how I didn't."
It's too clever for its own good sometimes, but I appreciate the fact they put an effort in. I'll give them
also 1-1, not something we actually do in the NBA. So,
yeah.
You don't. You get and ones. You don't get 1-1s. This isn't high school girls. Like I don't know.
I would support. So this is a weird tangent, real fast, but when I do have the ownership, we'll talk about it in a second. In NBA 2K, the way that it plays, you could actually vote on the league rules, where you're like your owner in my GM mode will talk to you and be like, "Hey, what do you think of these league rules? Do you support this or not?" And one rule that I implemented in one of my franchises last year was that you don't free throws don't count anymore. You just get the points for it and move forward. Tell you what, the games really soar by, and they are a delight.
I'm surprised they haven't done it.
Yeah.
I will say that. I'm also surprised you don't get one free throw for the sum value of the points.
That's what they're doing in the G League this year with the hopes of rolling it out, except the last 2 minutes, I think is what it is.
Yeah, they're just trying to, which is so weird, but having a 3-point free throw is going to be weird.
Yeah.
You get Jamal back in the league and get fouled on every 3-pointer. And all right, for 3 from the free throw line, it's just weird.
Jamal could have played one more year, by the way. I'm surprised he didn't sign anywhere.
I think he will.
He should. I mean, he was so good last year for Phoenix.
I think he'll say he really was. And then they threw time at him. He's still well good enough to play in this league. The one rule change that I would, by far, this comes up all the time. If you could change one rule in the NBA, what would it be? For me, it is by a mile, you can't foul out. It negatively impact people fouling by all means, but after 5 fouls they get an extra free throw or something. Make it a real issue. It's the only game where you're other than sort of hockey, where yes, I think you should be ejected. If you punch someone in the face at center court, yes, feel free to eject that person. I'm not saying you can't be ejected from a game, but just I played defense and so I have to leave the game is you should want them to play good defense. You should want them to play defense without fouling. It's the only sport. And again, I'd be less annoyed by it if NBA coaches were not horrific at managing foul trouble. The number of times where I see some guy who averages 1.6 fouls per 36 minutes randomly get 2 fouls in the first 5 minutes, his coach is like, "Oh, sit him down." And I'm like, Why? You have him out there because you want him out there now. He's starting for the team. He plays with this unit. You're going to screw up your rotation, which has real positively proven negative value on your performance. When your rotation tends to be team A, team B, team A, team A, team B, team A, and all of a sudden you start swapping guys in and hell out of there, your team generally does perform worse. And you're doing that because your theory is, oh, he's got fouls. He might miss time later. I better make sure he misses time. I don't understand.
It just deprives the fans too. I mean, we already have enough things. They're buying tickets. You're already missing the guys half the time. Like, some
drives me crazy. NBA coaches are smart guys, but it's like kicking field goals in the NFL, and they've just come to believe this is the way it's been done for so long. This is how we do it. But like in the age of Moneyball, for Christ's sake, like, know your players. That guy never gets in foul trouble. Like, LeBron didn't foul out of a game for 11 years. Like, if LeBron picked up 2 fouls in 2 minutes, you should ignore it. It should not be a. And I imagine since LeBron coaches his team, that's what would happen. But so that's my number one bugaboo for me. Like, it's the only game where it's like, yeah, I played defense, or God forbid the refs got it wrong, which again we're starting to address. But yeah, that's my one thing. Get rid of ejected. After 5 fouls, every subsequent foul, they get an extra free throw, 3 on a 2-point basket for. So you can still attack that player. You're still negatively incentivizing it, but you're not forced to be like, oh, well, he played really good defense, but got a little handsy and had 6 touch fouls, so we got to sit Yanis in the end of the NBA Finals or what have you. Like, it's absurd to me that has not been overturned.
All right, let's do a little Daddy Likes. It is America's favorite game. We can't call it quits on the night without doing this. So tell me what you got, Daddy. That sounded like I was just talking to you out of the side of a car. Tell me what you got, Daddy. Derek Favors, 46% owned on DK in the 1-1.
I'd want less, but it seems like a really good spot. It's like, again, I am projected for like 29 and 39. I think for like it's an incredibly good spot. So Daddy's fine with it. I would personally have a little bit less because, again, there's other good value. Like, it's I'm not the same every slate. There are guys where I have said, and people who've been watching the show for years, where I'm like, yeah, I would have 100% of that guy. Guys who are 50, 60% owned, and I'm like, yeah, I would have 100. But it has to do with how much other value there is that I think can get there. And there's other guys around his price range who can get there. And, Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be, 15 or something. And if he's, 46, yeah, I would probably come over on Wendell and under on him to try to take some advantage of that. But it's not like there's anything wrong with it. It's a great play.
JJ Redick, 44%. That one is I'm under. I'm not under the Favors one. But how does Daddy feel about JJ at 44?
I like his tattoos. Even as he gets older,
Alex had him projected really well. He had him as the number 2 value overall in the day. Surprised me. He had him projected for 31.3 fantasy points on DK.
I'll try and go 2-0 against Alex in chalky value this week. How'd that Corey Joseph work out for you, Alex? Want some of that? Boom. No, yeah, I'm gonna, and this is simplistic, and I presume Alex is correct, and I am wrong, and so I assume Alex's projection is very generous on him, or very higher than mine, not generous, I assume. But yeah, similarly, I can see how he can fail. I did not hate him. If he was, 30 whatever, I'd have had less, but it's not like he's in any way a bad play at $4,500, but 44%, yes, I would have less than 44% JJ Redick because he's JJ Redick. You can cut and paste this from my Corey Joseph commentary. And it's just, again, I'm less worried about dude absolutely crushing me. But the team's got a lot of guys missing. The matchup is well above average. You can certainly see him out there. Welcome to the NBA, Terrence Mann. Sure.
Let's see, where'd that ownership go? Damn it. All right, here we go.
I'm waiting for a number of names. This 7:00 ownership is massive. Like, there's gonna be a lot of. Yeah. This is like half the ownership. Like, what were they? What was, you said Favors 46, Redick 44,
Redick 44, and
be a number coming.
43 is Yanis.
Yeah, I
can't really argue with that.
I suspect I'd be about there, but again, in one lineup I was slightly more inclined to not having than having, but clearly that means I'd have him in somewhere around half lineups, and that'd be somewhere around 43%. So willing to move
on. Kenrick Williams 42%. How's Daddy feel about that?
That's still a ginormous damn number, but it's a 5-game slate. I feel better about that than Redick.
How about JaMychal Green at 36.5%?
I wish you better luck today in our personal colloquy on this subject. Yeah, I would have less, and you're gonna be shocked at the reason why. He's JaMychal Green.
He is JaMychal. I'm with it. Let's pray. Let's all pray together for our boy JaMychal. Big.
I mean, he's 4K flat. That is a relevant difference from 4,500 Kenrich, 4,500 JJ Redick. That money might very well do something for you. So I don't mind that much. Like he gets down by the basket a bit more. There's just a little bit of uncertainty there, but again, the matchup is great. But again, that's a team. I'm not secure in his minutes. I'll stop rambling and just say I'm not shocked to see 21 minutes of JaMychal Green tonight, and it's the only team on a back-to-back, by the way. So yep, I'd have come in under.
Luka, 36%.
Yeah, we haven't hit Drew Holiday yet. I'm ecstatic. I'd have had more Luka. And I had Luka. Similarly, I was looking at it and trying to make best guesses at it. Again, I didn't have time to actually build a hypothetical 150 lineups, but I suspect I'd be around 40 on both Luka and Yanis. I'd want a little bit more. I don't think you get the ridiculous performance you got against the Knicks last time. I need to look it up again, but when I was looking at it before, like he and Kristaps took somewhere around 45 shots, and the other starters collectively took like 6. Like it's not going to be quite that ridiculous usage, but 10K is just still well too cheap, dude. I have projected for about 60. So
Drew bringing up the rear right behind him at 34%.
Okay, I was hoping we were gonna get like 20 something Drew, and I'm like,
no. It was funny you were going about it, and I'm like, I won't spoil it for you. I'll let you have your fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for giving me those moments of happiness in my lifetime of darkness. And
so they're also waiting for me. I try to help other people out where I can.
That's good of you to be so generous. Daddy likes I'd be closer to 45% or so, maybe 50. Like again, I think he would be my favorite of those spend up guys. I just believe in him. I do like the spot very much for him. He just does everything and plays infinite time, and 8,200 is too cheap. So he's the guy like most of all this we're talking about.
Kristaps Porzingis, 29%. People chasing that 50-point day and revenge back at the Garden. How does Daddy feel about that?
Well, his price was nice.
That is too. That's literally nice. The nicest price.
Yeah. So I don't mind it. I suspect I'd have had less because I do think overall, end of the day, it does correlate negatively a little bit with Luka. So I suspect I'd have come in under that, but I'm feeling just fine with it.
All right. And here's one last one that's relevant. Actually, 2 last ones that are relevant. These guys are basically the same ownership. Lou Williams and Dante DiVincenzo, both around 23%. How does Daddy feel about both of those?
I have Dante DiVincenzo scoring 17 fantasy points. So, yeah. Where's Terrence Mann? He'd be in here too. He's got to be. People overreact to this starting crap all the time. So we already got the Dante DiVincenzo overreaction. He's playing the Pelicans, and I'm surprised he got on top of Mann news came out later. If both those news come out at whatever time the DiVincenzo news hit, which was like 5:30, I think, you'd have had more Mann. But Mann has to be double digits. I'm shocked.
And is at 15%.
Okay, there you go. Yep, I'd have less Mann. I'd have less DiVincenzo. Lou Williams at 7,700. Yeah, that's just fine. No complaint.
All right, and let me just see. We got a bunch of other guys here because there's enough games going on. But if anybody
Wendell Carter.
Oh, Wendell. Let's see. Where'd you go, buddy? I think he was above these guys. Wendell Carter, 17%.
Yeah, good on you. Yeah, like this is a matchup where I think he shouldn't have as much trouble and be in as much foul trouble, and he's looked really good. That number is cheap. So yeah.
Patrick Beverly, 0.1%. What did those people do, Eddie?
They played themselves.
They did. Thank you. You're filling in there. We want to just real fast thank Fantasy Draft. Of course, they are the official home of Rake-Free DFS. Thank you for FantasyDraft.com for existing, but also you guys should be going there right now. Use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, AWESEMO for your free 7-day trial. I know how to spell it. I've been here for 2 years. So go ahead, go to FantasyDraft.com right now and use that. And also, Greg SJ in the YouTube chat reminds me real fast that it is, in fact, your birthday tomorrow, which I meant to bring up and forgot. But happy early birthday from all the YouTube viewers and from me because I care. So, Eddie, I want to give you the floor real fast, not for a life after lock spiel because I've got to go walk my dogs and watch football. But the floor is yours. Say whatever you want for your birthday, for your big 43, I think it was. 25, is that what it was? I forget.
Yeah, no, that's it. No, 43 is right on that. It's a prime number. I'm entering my prime. Thanks everyone. It's been a really fun week. Hopefully we keep it rolling tonight. It's been a very lucky but still very gratifying number of days, personally and professionally. So thank you for sharing this and all days with me, and I'll be back on Saturday.
Yeah, so Eddie will be off tomorrow. Hopefully you doing anything good for your birthday?
I don't know. My wife has a surprise for me, so I'm optimistic.
Yeah. I bet Robin's got a good surprise, whether it's a PG one or not. I don't know if we could talk about it on the stream.
If Paul George is involved, I think he's a very good-looking man. He likes
Paul
that
George,
surge.
by the way, 9% apparently ownership.
Oh yeah, that's. I can't believe we didn't get into the PG conversation.
He was so low.
I said, by the way, remember that we were on the show and you said we have a 20%. I said high single digits.
Yeah. Look, you're on fire this week. I'm not gonna argue with it.
I don't know. It's been rewarding because I got to. There are a lot of times you don't get to comment things from sort of creative angles, but there's been a lot of paying attention news, and then I don't get to give hot takes a lot. I tend to. People are like, what do you think about this guy? And I go, well, here's the 6 facts, details, and/or stats I think you might find useful. Here's what I would do. You can draw your own conclusions. Like I sort of do it that way. Yeah, so it's just been fun to come at things a wide variety of ways this week, and it won't always be this good. So I will become crashing to Earth like a failed Soviet satellite at some point in the next 1 to 3 shows. Get out while you can.
Hopefully tomorrow would be your cold day because you're not going to be doing anything. It'll be me and Josh tomorrow. We celebrating you, of course, the entire day, and you'll be back this weekend with your old pal Emac, which always a great time. He had an old guy basketball question in the chat, which I've already forgotten, but it was a great one. But go tune into Eddie this weekend. Happy birthday to Eddie. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow. Josh and I will. We appreciate all of you for watching and sticking with us, and we'll see you guys again very soon. So enjoy your nights and good luck.